Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, October 10th, and we've got some Chapo coming at you today. In today's episode, as promised on a previous one, we take a break from the dreary world of war and electoral politics in this country to go back to I think, our original mission statement, our original purpose, dumb guy television. Dumb guy television, that's right, folks. We are back, and we're talking about my king, your king, the king of the world, the Tulsa King, starring Sylvester Stallone, a jewel in the Taylor Sheridan TV universe. Felix, just to update our audience, where we left our Tulsa King, where were they and what were they up to?
Just so people remember, the titular Tulsa King is Dwight the General Manfredi. He is a 76-year-old, former mafia cap, or it's sort of indeterminate. He's like in quasi-retirement, but he's just done like 30 years in prison. He gets out and he goes to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he starts a shockingly multiracial crime group. That's that is really one of the things about Tulsa King. Just imagine a real life Columbo captain going to prison in 1980, 86 or 87. Would they be as woke as Dwight the General? I don't know. I don't know. Frankly, I don't want to know. I like Dwight.
They said they killed Joey Gallo because he worked with black people inside prison. So, like Dwight says on the show, he did a lot of reading in prison.
He did, yes.
One of those books was White Fragility.
Yes. Yeah. He did a lot of reading in prison. He gets out. It's a whole new world, right? So, what is a mafia captain going to get into? They get into legal weed, protection, like more traditional mafia rackets. Somewhere along the way, he fucks an ATF agent.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing about Dwight. Just you may look at him and be like, this is a 76-year-old 5'2" man with severe brain damage. There's no way he comes out on top of all these situations, but you would be wrong. You would be wrong. Any woman he sees, he's fucking them. Any danger he's in, he's overcoming it. If he's at a federal trial, which we'll get to later, people go, oh, federal cases, 98% conviction. You just wait till Dwight the General becomes his own attorney, okay?
If the state's attorney for Oklahoma probably thought this was a layup, putting Dwight back in prison for trying to bribe a federal official, but he didn't count on a 80-year-old Italian man with brain damage defending himself.
Yeah,
high-priced lawyers, they're just going to send you back to the big house. But Dwight, he's sort of a different character. He does things a little bit differently.
Yeah, like defense attorneys, it's like pharmaceutical companies. They want you to lose your case so you can pay for more appeals, just like how they won't cure cancer if they're a pharmaceutical company. Cheaper to get it done yourself. So we're on the set. We recapped the first season. We fell in love with the show. But there is something I've noticed in this second season that I really didn't notice as much in the first. And I was wondering if you noticed that there is, in the same way that the movie Cobra has this dream-like quality, because everyone talks to each other like they're fucking space aliens. That everyone is so disjointed. One thing doesn't really lead to the other, even by the standards of bad movies. There's a little bit of that in season one, though it's more standard Taylor Sheridan fare. The second season, it really feels like a fever dream. That a typical scene is they're going somewhere, like Dwight and Martin Starr and his multiracial crew of semi-criminals, and it's the patter that's in these types of shows, and they'll be someone will be listening to they'll be on their AirPods, and Dwight's trying to talk to them, and one of the characters will go, he's listening to music, and Dwight goes, "What are you listening to?" And the Martin Starr character goes, "Fish." And he's like, "You can't listen to a fish. You're yanking my chain."
One time I put a carp to my ear. I couldn't hear nothing. I just felt wet.
Yeah, if somebody was like that in real life, you'd be like, "Oh my God, we have to put you in the care of the state." You're a medical moron.
Felix, I definitely picked up on this quality you're talking about on this season. And, I got to be a little bit critical off the top of the show. we are recapping and reviewing the first 4 episodes of season 2 of Tulsa King. And I kind of feel like they've lost a little bit of momentum from the first season. The first 4 episodes of the second season just seemed like recap. They literally just seems like the first 4 episodes of the first season. Not much has changed, but you're right. The dialogue has this very dreamlike quality to it. And I'm thinking this, the scene that really sticks out in my head is the scene where Dwight the General, Sly Stallone, first encounters what is sure to be this season's new adversary, played by Neil McDonough, who you might remember from such TV shows as Justified and Chapo, all-time favorite, Band of Brothers. He's the sort of icy blonde looking guy who plays a Oklahoma weed and petroleum magnate. And I like the idea that like he owns all the oil fields in Oklahoma, but also he's the biggest weed dealer. You got to diversify.
Yeah.
You think if you made your fortune in petroleum, you wouldn't need to branch out into legal weed, but that's neither here nor there. When Dwight faces off with this season's primary antagonist, their first interaction goes something like this. Neil McDonough, I see you've come a long way from Brooklyn. Sly Stallone. Yeah, but I like it in Oklahoma here. Neil McDonough, you should be careful because sometimes the winds blow in strange directions out here on the plains. Sly Stallone, is that a threat? Neil McDonough, do you feel threatened? Sly Stallone, the way when I was in the joint and someone threatened me, I would walk away like I'm going to do now. It's this weird, it's just a strange quality to the dialogue on this season.
Yeah, it's almost like, I would describe it like, it's not like the characters are standing in front of each other or next to each other and exchanging words in real time. It's almost like they're sending notes to each other, but reading them out loud. Like there is this like, there's this like disconnected reaction between what one person says to another that is very, I mean, we said dreamlike, and that's really it. You know how like you don't actually hear anything in a dream. Like that's one of the weird things about it. But your brain sort of fills in the blanks, and you see someone's lips moving, or you see someone respond in a certain emotional way. Your brain sort of like paves over that and goes, "Oh, he said, that guy said, whatever weird thing is happening in your dream, like that guy said that you have to shave your first grade teacher's back, or else you you have to do college again. The stuff that happens in dreams.
It's like you have a feeling of what the context of the dream is that's causing the anxiety, but people are speaking to you in the dream, but it doesn't register in the dream. But you know what they're saying, but they're not saying it. And that's what the dialogue feels like. Like, for instance, in the scene where Sly Stallone, representing himself in a federal bribery case, gets an appointment with the Oklahoma State's attorney and walks in and is like, I'm thinking we could just settle this out of court. I do a little community service, but no jail time. And the guy's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No jail time.
Are you going to the state's attorney like he's fucking Andy Griffith? The fucking federal attorney, and being like, what if I paint your garage?
He's like, listen, I want to be clear here. I'm guilty of the crime, but I'm just thinking, what if I plead guilty and you give me no jail time? And the guy's like, no deal. But but it doesn't really go down like that, because he's like, are you doing this because you want to do it or because someone else is making you do it? And the guy looks at him and he's like, Mr. Manfredi, we all serve different masters. And then he just gets up and leaves. He's like, all right, bye.
That is how they get out of how weird the stuff Dwight is saying, is that they just like 90, it's very French, because 90% of conversations end with someone storming out. How, just the typical way the conversations go inside the Schengen zone. But my favorite, what I loved about that scene, the tete-a-tete with the U.S. attorney, is that Dwight goes, it'd be kind of a waste of money to have this trial. Like, that's the way that the Department of Justice works.
He's like, the federal government has very deep pockets, Mr. Manfredi. And he's like, I once had a pants where the pockets are too deep. I couldn't find my keys. And then I realized they were by my knees. And then they're like, could you leave now? I've got an appointment in 5 minutes. I don't need to hear your recollections about the pants you wore one time on the Lower East Side.
I love the idea that the Department of Justice is like, do we like how much is it going to cost to a bribery trial for a 76-year-old man with the mind of a child who is acting as his own attorney? How much is that going to cost to like prosecute a case against him?
I think they can do it on the cheap.
Can we just not afford to prosecute federal crimes in all of Oklahoma for this month?
And he's like, well, let's just do a deal. I'll do some community service. You know, you be district attorney. And he's just like, no, you have to go to jail. And he's like, all right, bye. But then he's acquitted. But then he's the courtroom plot line on the first 4 episodes of this season was the most perfunctory thing I've ever seen on a show. Because the season begins and he's in prison. He's just been arrested. Like the season finale of season 1 ended with him being arrested for bribing the ATF agent that he was having sex with. A plot line I completely forgot about. I have no idea.
It is like nothing. It is like the translucent iceberg lettuce that comes with the worst wings from the most Albanian-owned pizza place. That is how nothing that plot is.
Yeah, and it's just like it sets it up in like first couple episodes because like his daughter is living in Tulsa and she's like, you know, you spent a quarter of my life in prison. I don't want you to go back to prison. And he's like, oh, you know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'll see if I can do a deal. And then like, and then they have the actual trial, and the trial itself takes not even they finish the trial before lunch on the first day. Because both sides are like, yeah, we don't really have any witnesses to call or closing or opening statements. Dwight just gets his former girlfriend on stand and he's like, would you say that we were two people who shared something? And they're like, leading the witness. And he's like, okay, let me rephrase that. Did you and I share an intimate, classy evening together? And they're like, okay, yeah. That's he gets his girlfriend on the stand and he's like, would you say I bribed you? Or did I just want to do something nice for you because we shared a nice, classy moment with each other? And even though I'm 80 years old, you still rolled around in the hay with me, and you had sex with me again a second time, even when you knew I was 80 years old. So maybe I wanted to do something nice for you, but I did not ask for anything in return. And she's like, yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. Not guilty.
Did the government have any they presumably knew that they were like, oh, our star witness had sex with this simple-minded 78-year-old man. Should we do something? Should we have any other witnesses? Nah, it'll be fine. He cross-examines her, and it's this big scene, but his entire cross-examination was like, would you say that I was a generous or selfish lover? Did I order Grubhub after? Would you say that we had most generously a June-December romance? And it just completely exonerates him.
Yeah, not guilty.
But it's like that's the problem with it, is that it's like as a view, maybe other viewers of Tulsa King didn't feel this way, but me personally, I was like, there was no chance that anything was good. He wins every situation he's ever in. That's kind of the fun of the show, is that there is absolutely nothing to be nervous about. You know, nothing bad is going to happen to Dwight. It doesn't matter how crazy he seems or how simple-minded or how bad he is at talking to other human beings. There is no situation that he will lose, ever. It makes you wonder how he went to prison in the first place. He probably just wanted to get away from his family.
I should note that originally we were supposed to have Bryan Quinby on this episode. We will have him back when Tulsa King wraps up. We were supposed to do that show last week, but, Israel exists. So Israel is once again fucking with the world and my life by making it so we can't have Bryan on this episode. But Felix, another thing I really like about this show is like the saloon where they all work at, which featured a surprise appearance by the recording artist Jelly Roll.
Oh my God! Can we talk
the Jelly Roll scene? The Jelly Roll scene was fantastic because, look, you've already established Dwight. He loves music, but because he's been in prison for the last 80 years of his life, Dwight Manfredi was born in prison.
Yeah, Yeah, he's like
and paroled.
Javert.
No, he's like Caspar Hauser. That's the only way that this show makes sense is that he was born in prison and paroled went on his 75th birthday and then moved to Oklahoma, a state he'd never been to before, and is like finding out about aspects of human life and culture that he's never experienced before. And he's like, well, I could just go into a store and buy a coffee? Oh, but oh, it wasn't like this when I was in prison. The only place I've ever lived.
Yeah. I was born like with scum like you. I'm from the gutter too. he's Javert.
Yeah. So yeah, like eagle-eared listeners will remember from last season that one of his various businesses that he starts in Tulsa, in addition to strong-arming his way into Martin Starr's weed business, is also buying into the Garrett Hedlund's honky-tonk bar that he turns into a casino, the Buck Broken Saloon. Folks, it's one of the most iconic locations in television, the Broken Buck Saloon, the place where all bucks go to get broken. And he's turned it into kind of a snazzy joint. And on his, wait, was it? No. Oh my God, this is even better. It wasn't at the Buck Breaking Saloon. It was at Martin Starr's new weed store that opens, and it's a weed store that has robots in it. You remember that?
Oh yeah. Like they couldn't quite figure out what to do with fucking Martin Starr's character.
No, they had no idea what to do with him.
They were like, is he a normal nerd? Is he a weed nerd? And like you really see this in his interactions with other characters because he'll say something like clearly the writers of the show are only like 10 years younger than the actual Dwight, because all the scenes where Martin Starr like does tech stuff, it's very like, you remember in Sons of Anarchy when they would be like, Juice, can you hack into the FBI database?
Juice, can you open PDF? And he's like, yeah, I'll get on it. Clay.
Yeah, Juice, can you hack into every satellite that the U.S. government owns? Yeah, sure. And then he just like spazzes out on a keyboard. That's what Martin Starr's character is like. He'll be like futzing around on his phone and they'll be like, what are you doing? What are you doing, nerd character? And he'll be like, I just found a way to maximize through cookies that we will start a portal that markets weed to every personality type. And then the characters will just like burst into laughter and he'll go, what's so funny? And then the scene ends.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's so weird.
At one point, Martin Starr's character is on the computer and Dwight's like, preparing for Dwight's trial. And he's like, I've downloaded an algorithm that lawyers use to screen jurors. And it's determined that we need middle-aged women on the jury because they'll be sympathetic to a romantic plot line in any federal bribery case. And he's like, that's great. But like, you're right. They don't have no idea what to do with Martin Starr's character because on last season, he was a weed store owner. That Sly Stallone sort of strong-armed his way into the weed business and sort of like is protecting him, taking him under his wing, extorting him. I don't know. It's very hard to figure out if Martin Starr hates Sly Stallone or not. He seems to begrudgingly have a respect for the man who's extorting him and nearly getting him killed a number of times. But what is it? Okay, so what to do? How do we evolve this character on season 2? He opens another weed store, a better weed store that has like cool space age weed technology, including a robotic arm that does something that's not really clear. He's like, you got Terminators in the weed store. Look at that. But like, remember, Felix, you remember the scene where, okay, like they have to come into the new weed store and Sly's like, I need to give everyone a pep talk because I just murdered a made guy, a made guy in the Kansas City Mafia. I just murdered him, and they're probably going to be seeking retaliation against me, my family, and everyone who's close to me. So, and like most of his crew are people who were like working at a coffee. They were like baristas a week ago, and before getting involved in his rackets. So he's like, things get a little tough for the next couple of days, so just everyone keep your head on a swivel in case anyone assassinates you.
Yeah, literally his entire crew are like DoorDash drivers, a weed store owner, and like just some lady. Like he's like, but we may have to fight a battalion-sized detachment of WAPs. And they're like, okay. Well, but I'm always up for some adventure.
At that point, Martin Starr is like, this is bullshit. I didn't sign on for this. I'm only a white-collar criminal that sells weed and does crypto crimes. I'm not into murder or being murdered. And stalks off into his office. And then Stallone's like driver, the kid who he meets in the first episode, like the young black guy who's like really like imprinted on him as a father figure, like just sort of is like, I got this, boss. And he goes back into Martin Starr's office and is like, come on, man, that's our boss you're talking about. And Martin Starr's like, oh, well, he's my business partner, not my boss. And like, I don't really want to get killed by the Kansas City Mafia. And then like, I don't know how that resolves, but the driver character walks back out into the main, to the weed store. And then Martin Starr follows him. And then they're like, are you good? And Martin Starr just nods. So he goes from being like, I'm done with this partnership, I don't want to die, to just basically being like, okay, I guess I'm still involved in this partnership and I'm going to risk my life a little further. All it took was that level of convincing.
Yeah, it just like Martin Starr is, again, the first season I remember about as well as a dream. Like I remember the literal things that happen, but like the actual characterization and everything like that is hazy. Martin Starr, they made him in the second season so much more like Roman in Party Down.
Yeah.
Another great Martin Starr character. Like he's a real asshole in the second season in a way. In the first, he's just kind of like a nerd, and he's like, he sees Dwight almost like a manic pixie dream girl. He's like, my life here is pretty boring, but this buffoonish elderly man who has a 400-pound bench press could bring some excitement to my life. This is very fun. But by the second season, like all his scenes with Dwight are like, he'll be like fucking around on the computer and being like, I need to, optimize the databases. And Dwight will go, databases. We used to watch All Your Bases Belong to Us in prison. It's a pretty funny video. And Martin Starr will be like, you buffoon, that's an antiquated meme. And then the scene ends. He's so mean to Dwight. I would not act like that to Dwight. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it should be stressed that, like, outside a few cast-offs from, like, New York City families, Dwight's entire crew are just, like, teenagers and and people who are just, millennials who were on their phones a week ago. And now he's getting them involved in a mob war. And really, I guess life is so boring in Tulsa, they all just go along with it. They're like, yeah, this is better than shoveling horse shit for a living.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Jelly Roll scene, because they have a grand opening for Martin Starr's new weed store in downtown Tulsa, and Jelly Roll's in town because he's doing a concert at the Oklahoma Center. And he stops in the store, and and Dwight's crew plays a little prank on him because Dwight doesn't know who Jelly Roll is. And they're like, oh, you should go in the recording studio that's also in this weed store and do one verse of one of your famous songs. Jelly Roll plays it off like he's just a janitor or something, and Dwight's like, well, it's a pretty good job, I pushed the broom in prison once. And then Jelly Roll's like, hold on, let me hop in the booth. And Dwight's like, I don't know about this. You're not like you're a professional singer or nothing. And then Jelly Roll does like a couple bars of a song called "I'm Not Okay." Which I really love.
Is every Jelly Roll song is so like this.
It's so
every
good.
Jelly Roll song is like your least favorite friend making you regret asking how his getting on Call of Duty with a friend, like a few friends, and then a friend of a friend, and you're like, how's everyone doing? And then you immediately regret asking that. Every time I hear a Jelly Roll song, I think, has your fat ass ever had a good day? Has anything good ever happened to you? Jesus. When he's not singing, he's like, he's the most sad, like just sickeningly positive, fake positive guy. A real like, oh, I love everybody. I believe in second chances. I'm a devil with angel wings. I used to do dirt, but now I dig a garden. But all his songs, he's just going through it all the time. He's so annoying. I hated every second of the Jelly Roll scene. I hated how he made a fool out of Dwight. Dwight's way smarter than him. Here's what I really hated. The whole scene, the fulcrum of the scene is that Jelly Roll is such a fucking amazing singer. Like that Dwight would hear it and it would knock his socks off. But the actual song they do is like, it is so Jelly Roll is not singing it. It is so lip synced. In order to get Jelly Roll's voice to sound like that, you need the same amount of machines that are required to keep an ALS patient alive. The same half the power grid in Oklahoma is going towards correcting Jelly Roll's voice in the scene.
Yeah, his hit single "I'm Not Okay," and the lyrics are like, "If you see me walking around one day, you may think I'm happy and gay, but the truth is, I'm not okay.
If I
This is
saw
a
you walking around in my neighborhood, I would call the military. I would call my senator and be like, 5-star rating in real life. Send in the National Guard to kill this buffoon.
No, the I'm not okay follows his breakout single. This is not normal.
Yeah.
So we get like our first celebrity cameo, but we struck the other antagonist. I mentioned that he killed a made guy from Kansas City, and for fans of my favorite movie of all time, Casino, you already know that Kansas City has a fairly large mob presence. Tulsa apparently does not, but Kansas City regards Tulsa as their territory. And Neil McDonough sort of drops a dime to the boss of Kansas City, played by Frank Grillo. And I don't know about you, Felix, but I always like seeing Grillo in anything. There's
my God. No, yeah.
I love Grillo, but like in the Great Plains states, Dwight Manfredi was not aware that there were the occluded Italians, the hidden Italians in Kansas City, who are now causing problems for him. So yeah, there are Italians in the Great Plains states, but they're hidden, they're occluded, and in this season they are making their presence felt.
Yeah, Grillo is presumably the son of Artie from Casino, the guy who didn't know his grocery store was bugged and complained about all the details of the entire criminal conspiracy to his mom. Because Grillo's character even says, I was gifted the Great Plains by my father. And who else could that be,
Artie Piscano,
Remo
Casey
Gaggi,
Underboss. Yeah.
Why take a chance? But yeah, no, like the cast is like, part of this is because it's Taylor Sheridan verse, but it really is like my personal TV all-stars. Like Martin Starr is like a lifelong TV prodigy, Freaks and Geeks,
Party Down, Silicon Valley.
He's great in every. I love Martin Starr. He's awesome. Even if his character here, they really don't quite know what to do with it. I feel like Taylor Sheridan has a little bit of Dwight in him, and he just saw Martin Starr and was like, computer guy, and didn't think any further.
Taylor Sheridan has the same attitude about people with glasses as Pol Pot did.
Yeah. Frank Grillo is, if you want someone that will play like an overly intense middle-aged guy who does swinging, Frank Grillo is you cannot have a better choice than Frank Grillo. And Neil McDonough is like every time I see Neil McDonough, not in Band of Brothers, but like in this type of thing, it's like, oh my God, finally, this show is getting a villain that's into rough trade. He is so good at playing those guys. I'm sure he's a sweetheart in real life, but like he should play Marty Perez in the New Republic movie.
The fact that they don't look anything alike is no mere obstacle to an actor of his caliber. Would be no obstacle. Neil McDonough, the most fucking fucking Scotch Irish looking freak on the planet, is going to play Marty Perez, the gnome like publisher of the New Republic, and a alleged fan of shall we say
rough trade
liaisons of a certain variety.
He's into the labor movement. Marty Perez, who gets up and sharpens his face every morning, played by Neil McDonough, who really just looks like a polar bear. He looks like a Coca-Cola polar bear. I mean that as a compliment. I love how he looks. I wish I looked
it's his icy blue eyes. He's like one of those dogs, like a Malamute or a husky or something. That's what he reminds me of. Yeah.
They even in fucking Justified, they even describe it like a witness describes him as a man who looks like a husky, which I thought was so funny.
Back to Frank Grillo for a second. He's playing the mob boss of Kansas City, Bill Bevilacqua, on this series, and like basically he's a guy he's moved out to the Plains States, and he's basically like a guy with dark hair and brown eyes who also wears a cowboy hat and like shoots skeet. That's how you know he's been in Kansas City for his whole life. But I'm wondering, Felix, we're talking about great Frank Grillo performances, and I'm wondering if you remember my favorite Frank Grillo casting when the producers of Billions cast him as an artist.
Oh my, that was
when he was
that,
he was like a sort of like a fucking Mark Rothko style modern artist
he
on
was
Billions.
Like, they made him like almost like Jackson Pollock. Like he would just splatter shit all around and be like, they represent my emotions, like pissed. Pissed, happy. Happy that I'm pissed.
He's an artist that works in the medium of drywall.
Yeah. There's an installation where just different girls go up to him and say something to him, and he just fucking busts a hole through the wall. Not since the casting of Tom Hardy to play like a Vice journalist have I been so delighted by that kind of a casting choice. It's like he's an artist, and like his art is so good that even Bobby Axe is like I'll give you $30 million to make these bullshit splattery things. Like he could play an artist, but one of those guys who makes like glossy, like those things that Brad Trammell posts where it's like
where it's like
a holographic $1 million bill with the Joker at the center of it,
where like you get a golden desert eagle and then you cover it in lucite and make like a giant paperweight, and then there's also Scarface is involved in
that, like, if he played that kind of, and that is like the Bobby Axelrod would like that stuff. I don't believe for a second that Bobby Axe would be into modern art, but he does. Of course, he fucks Maggie Schiff, but then he kind of realizes Bobby's designs, and he's like, this made me turn my back on the most important thing to me, art, and all his art is just like the fucking like finger paint by a 3-year-old, and not even a smart one.
Also, one of my favorite aspects of Tulsa King is the repeated sort of cutaways to what's going on back in the city of New York, the place where Dwight has been exiled from, and his Brooklyn crime family that he's on the outs with, who sent him to Tulsa to like just shut him up and hope that he dies out there. To now he's in open war with them, and the Brooklyn crime family is headed by Dominic Lombardazzo from The Wire and various other movies like The Irishman. But he's always good. But like back to Felix, what you talked about, the sort of dreamlike quality to the writing on this show. Whenever they cut back to Brooklyn, they're like they signify, because you see like a Manhattan skyline and you see the brownstones in Brooklyn, and you're like, oh, just in case. I was worried for a second I wasn't in Tulsa, but I'm glad I know where I am. And like when they cut to Tulsa, they'll have some shit kicking music like Jelly Roll, and then when they cut back to Brooklyn, they'll have like a Bobby Darin song like "Oh Sweetie Baby" playing, just to sort of foreground you and where you are. So like they'll go to the Italian social club where they do all of their not business, because most of what the mafia is in the show is like taking phone calls and being like, yeah, I heard about that thing. Nah, I'm not going to do that thing. All right, let me call you back and we'll talk about that thing. Like that's mostly what they do all day.
It is. There's one
great line where the guy who plays Lucky Luciano on Boardwalk Empire gets a call and it says potential spam, and he goes, how the fuck do they know if it's spam or potential spam? AI my cock.
I love how current the show is. They talk about real issues.
AI my fucking cock. And like, but like it's that kind of writing, because like when like the boss walks into like the social club where the boys are playing pinochle and drinking wine and listening to "Oh Sweetie Baby" on the phonograph. Like he walks in and they're like, "Hey, what's the difference between a cocktail waitress and a stripper?" And they're like, "I don't know what." And they're like, "About 2 weeks." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, they're laughing it up. And then the boss walks in and he's like, You fucking morose guy got nothing better to do than laugh and tell jokes all day." Oh, and they're like, and then it just stops. There's nothing, like, it doesn't go any further. He's like, "You mama looks like laughing so much. You should go on Comic View on BET."
You should go open for Bruce. That's him trying to encourage them. You should develop your talents and put yourself out there. The worst that happens is you make some friends, you fucking mook. I love that, because it's like is this your first day in the mafia?
Yeah.
That's all these guys do.
He's getting mad at guys for not doing work.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite jokes one of my favorite meta-textual jokes of The Sopranos always was whenever Tony would get into an argument with like Carmela or the kids, he would go, "I bust my ass all fucking day for what?" And every time you see him working, they're just doing that. They're just telling stupid jokes in like a clubhouse.
They're eating they're playing cards and each eating a sandwich that contains a whole pig's worth of pork in it.
Yeah. Just watching Matlock and being like, whatever happened to Deborah Winger? She was a piece of ass.
My guess is she'll be on season 3 of Tulsa King as a love interest to Sly Stallone.
Yeah. Oh,
Dana Delaney is picking up the slack on this episode, on this season. But like, again, back to the way like this show just will like introduce like a scene and then just end it. They do the same thing with characters, like the ATF girlfriend, where after she testifies that they did indeed have several roles in the hay, and he was a generous lover who, made sure that she was sexually gratified before putting on a Frank Sinatra record and lip syncing to it for 30 minutes.
I learned how to play violin from this guy named Dan in the joint.
He's like, as she's leaving the courthouse, he's like, I'm sorry about that, but I think you and we shared something really special. And then she's like, okay, but I do not feel that way anymore. It's time for my character to leave the show. I'm being reassigned to Alaska. Bye. And then walks out of the courthouse.
She says, I'm being reassigned to Anchorage. He goes, in Alaska? And she's like, is there any other one? And he goes, I don't know. And that's the last thing they ever say to each other. You know what? You know what the tonality of the dialogue is like? It's like Cobra. Cobra was dreamlike in this exact same way.
Like when Bridget Nielsen is like, could you ever let yourself fall in love? And Stallone goes, with a woman?
Yeah. Or after Bridget Nielsen is almost murdered and sees one of her friends get brutally killed, and fucking Stallone and his idiot uncle are like in her hospital room, like playing with the stethoscopes and like fucking around and eating candy.
Eating candy, playing with the medical equipment. And yeah, like his partner is like, please don't mind my friend who has 8 matches sticking out of his mouth and is drooling on you. We're going to consult you about your near murder and rape. And he's like, hey, you got any jujubes for me?
Yeah, the uncle is literally sucking a giant lollipop.
Oh, well, there's a lot of lollipops in this season because one of the things I also like is the scenes where Dwight gets high because he's got to sample the product. So they do. I really think in this season they did a conscious throwback to everyone's favorite moment from season 1, i.e., in a long car ride in Oklahoma, where Dwight he takes an edible and then talks about trans people. Where he's like, what the fuck is up with all these pronouns these days? They got they, theirs, he, him, she, her. Got too many in the joint. We only had one pronoun. It was they, you.
Yeah, I used to live in a DIY house in Philly, and they said socks got to clean the dishes. I said, how's a sock going to clean the dishes? And they said, sock is our new roommate. I said, how's a sock going to pay rent?
So they have another scene exactly like that in this season where they're driving out to do some business. They're driving out to close a new business deal that will buy them several thousand wind turbines that they will use to power their weed growing business, which is like, it makes no fucking sense.
It's so stupid.
It's bizarre. They're going to buy, not even constructed. They're going to buy like the right to farm wind on an Indian reservation and divert that power to a hydroponic grow laboratory so that they can sell more marijuana.
This is like this scheme they were trying to do with the logs in Zorba the Greek, but like even more harebrained. I cannot figure it out for the life of me what their contraptions are supposed to do.
They have a long car ride, and like Stallone has gone off those edibles, and they're talking about how the guy that they just met, or the guy that they're going to meet, is named Med Hat because he's a Native American. He's like has tribal land, and he has the rights to this as of yet unconstructed wind farm that they're going to get running in like a month's time. He's like, how long do we get these wind turbines up and build our grow house? And they're like, I don't know, about a week. So he's like, they're like, hey, glasses, Martin Starr, you're smart. What does med hat mean? He's like, Medicine Hat is a city in Alberta. And then they could start talking about like the young driver character. I think his name is Tyson. He's like, hey, man, like anyone named after a city, that's just weird. And then they're like, what about Sidney Pollack? And like the Garrett Hedlund's character says, what about Sidney Pollack? There is absolutely no way on earth his character would be aware of the director and actor Sidney Pollack.
No, it is like they're like what they think like the average Oklahoman would know is insane. That could be the most unrealistic thing in the show, actually.
This is a guy who's brilliant. Again, another brilliant caper a score that they pull off on the show. That's like Garrett Hedlund has the brilliant idea to be like, hey, what if we steal catalytic converters? And they're like, are you fucking stupid? Like, that's like the most penny anti-crime you can do. And he's like, okay, but what if I told you we weren't stealing one catalytic converter? We're going to steal a dozen of them. And they're like, hey, that's $200 each. Think about that. Think about that. Think about all that. Think about all those clams in your pocket.
I love that Taylor Sheridan put the catalytic converter storyline ripped from the headlines into the show. You know, Taylor Sheridan, I can tell that Taylor Sheridan is he follows the crime blotter. I'm even more surprised that he made the protagonist do it. So we touched a little bit on Neil McDonough's character and how fucking bizarre their introduction is. The scene where like Dwight and Tyson and everyone go to the casino, and like the reason they're going is because Dwight's like, I think you're supposed to meet inspirational people that inspire you to do
He wants
better.
the Lincoln build with entrepreneurs like himself.
It's so weird. Like he's not
he makes everyone in his crew buy an individual outfit so they can go to a charity gala at Neil McDonough's house. And they're like, hey, we got to make a good impression. When you represent me, you got to look good in the suit. And there's even a montage of them trying on clothes set to Sharp Dressed Man by ZZ Top, which I really appreciated.
I love that.
Yeah, Martin Starr shows up in like a Sergeant Pepper outfit, and then it's just like the joke is that they're all just in regular suits at the end, and the old guy's like, "You're gonna like the way you look, I guarantee it."
Yeah.
So they show up, and he's like, "Okay, we're here to Lincoln build with one of the richest, most powerful men in Oklahoma," and then Dana Delaney introduces them, and Neil McDonough's like, "I've heard that the weather out on the plains strikes you as bad," and he's like, "Sometimes the weather is nice to me, but not when I'm being threatened." And then he's like, I think you'll find if you stay in Oklahoma, you will be threatened. And then he's just like, okay, I gotta go.
It's so weird. It's so weird because this guy is like a legit billionaire. And he's like, he goes to this charity gala and he sees this simpleton surrounded by people in like ill-dressed suits. One of them literally dressed up like Nick Cannon from Drumline, Martin Starr. And he's like, oh my God, this simpleton who steals catalytic converters and sells CBD on an app. He's going to compete with me in the the billionaire racket. Like he's like, this is the like he's going to go against me for like defense contracts. Dwight the General.
No,
I mean, they probably
Dwight the
will
General
do that.
He currently owns and operates a bar and 2 dispensaries. And Neil McDonough's character is supposed to be the richest man in Oklahoma. And he's like, I think you'll find that the competition matters when it's who you're competing against is what counts. And then he's
it's
like,
so
right,
like Neil McDonough seeing this 83-year-old man who's selling CBD to like God knows who, and he's like, oh, so you're trying to take everything that I have, huh?
I know. In the same episode, they're stealing a dozen catalytic converters out of a car dealership to like, hey, this is our big score. But then they're always business minded. It's not just that you steal the catalytic converters, then you give it back to the car dealer. You give half of them back to the car dealership and then buy the car dealership. That's business mindset.
Most generally,
another score that made, by the way, another score that made absolutely no sense. They rip off, like, they're able to get onto the lot of a car dealership just by cutting through a chain link fence. And then, like, their crew is like 12 doofuses who are going to go under every single car and saw off the catalytic converters and then leave unmolested. Then the car dealership guy is like, hey, I know you stole those catalytic converters, and if I don't get them back, my business is going to suffer. But Just could you be nice and send them back to us? And then they're like, yes, we will, but we'll also buy your business.
Dwight's schemes make about 3% more sense than the Sons of Anarchy schemes. I think they're at least cash flow positive, which is more than I can say about the Sons.
But at least the Sons are doing crimes in like recognized field of crime, like muling coke and dealing AK-47s.
Yeah,
all of Dwight's schemes are like, hey, we found out that the water rights for the city of Tulsa are being auctioned off, so I'm gonna steal the dog of the water commissioner and then pretend to give it back. It's just like
the typical Dwight scheme is like, we're gonna go into an office building, we're gonna put on masks, we're gonna take the fax machine, and then we're gonna.
Felix, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Ricky and Julian's schemes on Trailer Park Boys.
Exactly.
When they show up in an office and start taking out the office furniture, just pretending they're movers. Like that is Dwight's schemes for getting into every business. Like he will see a story in the newspaper about like, the yuan rises on the international monetary market, and he's like, they got money over in China. I'm gonna get down on that. I'm gonna get. It's just like,
and then they go to a Chinese restaurant and steal all the sauce packets,
steal all the duck sauce, and then sell it to like a barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, that is the typical Dwight scheme. But like it is literally like if Jeff Bezos met Ricky and Julian and was like, I see you coming for me. Like, same, just as ridiculous. But okay, so could you follow what was going on at all with the Neil McDonough subplots? I watched it, rewatched it several times.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Like they introduce his character and he's like, okay, he knows Dana Delaney because he likes buying horses, a typical rich thing to guy to do. He's growing weed on his property, but like with the Chinese mafia, he's done a deal with the Chinese mafia who are growing weed and poppies on his property in Oklahoma. And then like in the fourth episode, they try to introduce this plot line where he's like, he knows that his Chinese gangster business partners are growing and processing opium on his legal weed farm. And he's like, hey, I didn't sign on for this. This is not cool. Not cool, guys. Get those poppies out of here. It's more trouble than it's worth. And then they're like, okay, we'll do that. Then they like catch two of their slaves stealing. And by the way, the scene with like the Chinese workers, they were dressed like they were from like the 19th century and just arrived in San Francisco to build a railroad. They were subject to the Exclusion Act of Woodrow Wilson.
They were wearing like those pointy hats and like black pajamas, like the VC. Like, where did you dress these guys?
So Neil McDonough is like, they're like two of their slaves have been caught stealing weed. They've been caught stealing gummies from him. And they like tie them up outside, and Neil McDonough is like, translate. I want them all to hear this. And he's like, I offered you the American dream. And all you had to do was show some work ethic and not steal. And now these two men are going to pay the price. And he starts like cutting a switch. And then his Chinese partner just shoots both of them in the head. And he's like, whoa, what are you doing, man? I thought we were just going to scare him. I thought we were going to give him a stern talking to about business, about a work ethic and best business practices.
And then there's this like 20-second lingering shot of Neil McDonough looking extremely disturbed at the Chinese business partner, who we all thought was just like a throwaway character.
Yeah.
That Neil McDonough was going to kill. It's like they set Neil McDonough up as this big, scary bad guy, but he's instantly like terrorized and hoed out by his most replaceable henchman.
And like, and that's you get to that scene. He literally was cutting a switch, and he was like, "I'm going to do this in front of all of you Chinese people to teach you a lesson about how we deal with shoplifters here in America." And then his Chinese partner just shoots both of them in the head, and he's like, "I was just going to paddle their hides a little bit. I was going to tan their backside a little bit."
Like, and also, like, this guy's like a billionaire, but his weed operation is so fucking like nickel and dime. They're just in like a greenhouse that, I don't know, like a 400 square foot greenhouse. And he has like a dozen idiots hand picking like mids. That's probably why he thinks
it's like the scene it's like the scene where they like there's an apartment and it's like a drug processing lab and they have like 18 women who are stripped naked wearing like surgical masks and like plastic goggles on, just like diming up fucking crack, just like carving off crack and putting it in little baggies. He's got that, but it's like he has 30 Chinese slaves separating the seeds out from like a shoebox worth of weed, and they're like, this shipment has got to get to the high school parking lot by 3:00 stat, or I'm out of business.
yeah. He's like, if you're in the petroleum business and you're like, this is going pretty well, but what if I sold weed at a profit margin of $10 for every 100 kilograms?
That's the thing I love about this show is that nobody's schemes make any fucking sense at all. Nor does the show attempt to explain them, even in the slightest. It's just steal catalytic converters, buy car dealership, and wind turbines equals criminal empire.
It's because
remember the scene where he tries to get a loan from the bank for $7 million, and they're like, no, obviously not. And then he's like, okay, bye. Okay, it's another scene that just ends. He just leaves without. It's like,
what was the point of that scene?
It was like he needs $7 million to buy wind turbines from a guy he met in Central Booking, who he like told who he imparted life advice from a lifelong felon about how not to get raped in prison. And then everything with Dwight, the guy's like, I'm in jail because I defrauded the government out of wind turbine subsidies that I gambled away. And he's like, okay, but if anyone asks you for the assault in prison, you say, I'm going to take this salt and put it through your fucking skull. Or else, you can be wearing nail polish and enter into a bitch for the next 20 years. So he gets the idea. He hears that some other idiot who's in prison now got $12 million for doing wind in the wind business. And he's like, once again, he has an idea. He's like, hey, I gotta start making money off wind. And then he goes to the bank. It's like, I need $12 million to buy wind turbines. And they're like, no, we're a commercial bank that we do mortgages, and we certainly wouldn't give you a loan. And then he's like, okay, bye. But then in the next scene, they're like doing a deal to buy the wind turbines from the Native American reservation.
I think they like kept that scene in because it's like supposed to be really funny, because like the bank lady, like they introduce like Stallone is there with Tyson, and like when they meet the branch manager who tells them that they literally can't loan them that much money, the junior banker they're talking to goes, this is Mr. Manfredi and his partner, Tyson. And Tyson goes, business partner. And they like, Stallone apparently has never heard that joke that has been in movies and shows for like 45 years at this
I think
point.
Stallone just got out of prison.
Yeah, actually, yeah. If they were like, we don't care how little sense the scene makes and how little it does for the plot, we have to keep it in because that partner, I've never heard it before. But like going back to how like none of the crimes or schemes make any sense, that is because I think that, Taylor Sheridan is like, he probably like a Mormon with their magic underwear. He probably wears a full Eagle Scout costume under his clothes every day. Taylor Sheridan is like the closest thing we have to like a real life Ned Flanders. So this is him trying to concoct like what a crime is.
Yeah.
And he's like, a typical crime for like a mafia captain. It would be to get out of late fees at Blockbuster.
There's another subplot with because Stallone moves his family into like a new neighborhood, and there's a subplot with Dan Bacadal, who plays the HOA guy who keeps fining him for having his garage door open. And then
another goat of TV, Bacadal.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Dan Beep, remember?
Beep? Oh, forget about it. But I mean, that's another plot. It's another little digression that goes absolutely nowhere, because the guy finds out that he's like notorious criminal Dwight the General Manfredi, and then he just comes over and he's like, "Oh yeah, all the HOA fees, I'm just gonna waive them. Sorry, bye." And then
what? Yeah, like what did he think Dwight was before?
Yeah, but Felix, it's another example about how like nothing bad can happen to Dwight. Like there is no obstacle that he is presented with that he doesn't surmount within 5 minutes of screen time.
Yeah,
another perfect example. is I'm going to talk about like the scene where Frank Grillo comes to see him at the Buck Broken Saloon. And then he's like, I don't know if you heard or not, Tulsa's my town, and you're going to start kicking up to me. And then Dwight's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to do that. And then he's like, all right, but I'm going to send this other guy who's with me now. He's going to come back later and offer you another deal. And then he's like, okay. So then like so Frank Grillo sends a guy back to meet with Dwight and kill him. And the guy he sends to do it, his plan to do it is like, let's just say, okay, I'm going to come back and we're going to ask Dwight to come outside to talk business. And then when he does, at his own establishment, surrounded by his own guys, I'm just going to take out a gun and shoot him.
Yeah, which like after the meeting they had, why would Dwight? It's so stupid because like the Frank Grillo literally all but says in that meeting,
I'm going to kill you.
Like kick up to me or I'll kill you. And he's like, oh, you're not kicking up to me? Well, okay.
Maybe you'd like to kick up to my friend when he comes back.
Why would you have to send a different guy to give him a different offer? Like, like that is so fucking like, oh, okay, I'm out of offers for today. My ultra is giving offers to Dwight the General, and I'm out of mana.
And like the way the scene is set up, it's like the Grillo and the New York guys have made an offer to one of Dwight's like capos or whatever. It's like some other New York City guy who's now living in Oklahoma. I don't remember his character, nor do I care. But they're like, hey, if you kill Dwight, we'll make you the Tulsa King. And then he's like, I'm not saying no to it. It's an offer I could entertain, but if you could just send another guy to make the same offer, hey, then we're talking business here. And then like you think that he's betrayed Dwight, but they just walk outside, see this guy, and he's like he sent one guy to kill Dwight, and Dwight has like 5 dudes surrounding him, and the dude just takes out a gun like he's gonna kill him, and then they just grab and stab him to death. It's like the scene had zero tension and was over before it even started. The guy just showed up and he's like, hey, I'm here to do the other deal. And then he pulls out a gun and they just stab him to death. That's it.
I guess they were trying to build him up, but like, if you had Dwight facing down like an aircraft carrier, there'd be no tension. Fucking dumbass Dwight would find a way out of it. He always does. But against one guy, it begs the question why it was even in the show, or much less as a climactic moment.
If Dwight faced off against an aircraft carrier, he would see a headline in the Tulsa, Oklahoma local newspaper about how they're powered by nuclear reactors, and he'd be like, hey, we should build one of those and sell it to the Navy.
Yeah. Hey, do you have any any protons lying around? And Martin Starr's like, well, I was saving them for a special occasion, but fine.
I was saving them to create a new strain of marijuana, but I suppose we're selling nuclear reactors to the government now.
Hey, they should call you a nuclear reactor because you have a bad reaction to salt.
Yes.
And then they all laugh and the scene ends.
I want to return though to the scene where Dwight is off those gummies in the car and just sort of yucking it up with Martin Starr, where he gets confused about the band fish and he thinks it's a fish and not an as Martin Starr refers to them, an improvisational rock group inspired by the Grateful Dead. You should really listen to them.
Why does he think that Dwight would be into fish? That is just a crucial misunderstanding of his character. Like, maybe he will like them. They show Dwight as like taking to modernity and things he missed out on very well. But like, if Dwight were, a less fantastical character, he's not listening to anything made after 1965.
Would you like to listen to this song that features a 30-minute ukulele solo?
Yeah,
to me. But Dwight's like sort of off the edible story that he tells, where he starts rambling about how important music is to his life, is genius comedy, because he tells this rambling story about how he was like, I was on the Lower East Side and I was a little bit drunk. Scratch that, I was a lot bit drunk. They called the Lower East Side the gateway to America at one time. It was like he tells stories like Grandpa Simpson. He was like, I was on the Lower East Side wearing an onion around my belt, which was the style of the time. So he tells a story about how he walks into this dank club on the Lower East Side and is so drunk he goes to sleep on a speaker and then loses part of the hearing in his ear because they start playing the song On the Road Again. And the whole time you think this is about how he likes the song On the Road Again. But no, it's a song about how he's angry at the people who wrote and produced that song because he lost his hearing after falling asleep on a speaker on the Lower East Side in 1905.
How is that their fault?
This is the world. This is the Casper Hauser style world that Dwight inhabits. He is a one of one.
Yeah. Dwight, if you told me that Dwight's character learned to read 5 years before the events of the show, I would believe you.
I'm trying to remember, have we missed any major event from the first 4 episodes of Tulsa King?
No, well, okay. I did want just one really major one, and it's Dwight's sister. And of course, first of all, the ages in the show are all weird. Dwight has a younger sister, and by younger, I mean possibly 45 years younger. Dwight is 83 years old, and his sister is what, like 40? But that's a little goofy casting. But what I think they did do really well on, and this is
Annabella Sciorra is 20 years younger than Sly Stallone.
One thing I thought was well done about this, and I think true to life, is that the real Dwight Manfredi's sister, and in the quantum sense that I think all TV characters do have personhood in a quantum sense. This is sort of central to my religion. The real Dwight Manfred, the General Manfredi's sister, would be a fedora woman, as her character is.
Yes,
that's the first thing we notice about her. She's a fedora.
She wears a big hat. She wears one of those big floppy cowboy hats that women love.
Yeah, exact type of woman who would wear that hat. But she's also a lawyer. She's a high-powered lawyer, and she's like, Dwight, you should get a good lawyer and not just yourself for your federal bribery case. And he's like, oh, this costs a lot of fucking money. She's not really. They don't really involve her in many storylines.
No, she's just like she's like, Dwight, I get the sense something's wrong, and he's like, nothing's wrong. It's gonna be okay. What are you talking about? And she's like, don't lie to me, Dwight. I know there's something wrong. And he's like, I killed the main guy when I could have done a deal with him, and now all our lives are in danger. And she's like, Dwight, not again. That's basically her character.
Yeah, but I think that about sums it up. We're only 4 episodes deep, and we will have to have Bryan on for the wrap up. I am very excited to see where this goes. Do you think they're implying that Neil McDonough's character will have to team up with Dwight to take down his henchmen who he's scared of?
I think there's a good chance we could see an alliance between Neil McDonough and Sylvester Stallone to fight the Chinese menace. The Yellow Peril in Oklahoma.
That's going to happen. And Dwight will be like, I'll help you out with your Chinese problem. But I got one condition. You have to give me an oil rig. And that's how Dwight gets into the petroleum business.
Stallone learns about an oppressed ethnic and religious and minority in China. And he was like, back in my day, we just called that was white guys who liked rap music.
Yeah, so we're very excited to see where the show goes. As difficult to follow as it was at times, I do kind of like the new dreamlike quality that the show has. It's a lot of things are different from the first season. The first season seems like a little more madcap and more standard Taylor Sheridan fare, where this is one of the most confusing shows on TV right now, to be honest with you.
It really
is.
But
I'm very excited to see the rest regardless.
Yeah, I'll be watching every episode, and we will be back to recap the season. The season 2 finale happens. We will definitely get Bryan back on to discuss the rest of Tulsa King, but we're very excited where this season is going, or not going, I should say.
Can I ask about one of the I did not watch this, but can I ask about one of the plot lines from the first one if it comes back?
Yeah.
The Nitrous Gang.
Right. They're not around this season.
Okay. I was just wondering because, Nitrous has really had a pop in culture this summer between the Kanye thing and all the Galaxy Gas videos. And I kept thinking, Tulsa King, kind of prescient on that.
That's right. No, the Nitrous Gang is just one of the many penny ante rackets that Dwight has taken over for. Every week, the Nitrous Gang are kicking up $5 to him for selling balloons.
Yeah.
And every week they come in, they give him an envelope and they're like, "That's for you, boss," and there's change inside of it. All right, so yeah, that's the first half of season 2 of Tulsa King, and I think we'll leave it there for today.
Yeah.
But some business to discuss. I would just like to remind everyone to buy Matt Christman's book, to check out ChapoTrapHouse.store for some new T-shirts and merchandise, and also to come see us in LA with episode 1, Election Eve in Los Angeles. Tickets still available.
Great.
So that'll do it for us today, Tulsa Kings. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everybody. We're coming into you on Friday, November 22nd. Apologies for the delay, but it was only to accommodate our guest, who we wouldn't want to do this episode without. So bear with us. We are talking to the King, Bryan Quinby, about the King of Tulsa, Dwight Manfredi. Bryan, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. This is like a new type of TV show that I think I love more than anything now, where it's never in doubt that the main character is going to come out on top. There's never even a second
Bryan,
where you're like,
I was going to introduce this. I want to introduce. We're wrapping up season 2 of Tulsa King, and like you, Bryan, I love this show, and I was trying to figure out why I love this show, and to introduce, to get us rolling today. I was thinking about this, and I want to bring it full circle. I want to bring it back to where it all began. That's right. The Sons of Anarchy. And I compare these two shows because Catherine and I are rewatching Sons of Anarchy right now. She's never seen it before. But I just have both shows on my brain. And I don't mean to compare them to say, oh, Sons of Anarchy is good and Tulsa King is bad. But I do want to set up this essential distinction between them. And that is the essential, the thesis of Sons of Anarchy that is played out over 7 seasons of that show is that if you are involved in a criminal lifestyle, if you live in the underworld of crime and the people who do it, essentially every decision you make, good or bad, causes even greater harm to you. There is no way out, and any disaster that is averted, even in the short term, causes a much greater, more evil long-term problem, that there is essentially no escape. And I say that to set up the contrast with Tulsa King, which seems to just be about how doing crime, not only does it pay, but you always make the right decision and it works out good for everyone involved, even your enemies.
Yeah, we talked about it last time during our sort of mid-season recap, but at this point, there is no circumstance that I could see Dwight the General Manfredi or his, we love this term, multiracial working class crew of criminal affiliates, though they're probably now upper class, given that Dwight has enriched them through zero risk crime. But there's no situation where I would be like, oh no, I don't think Dwight could get out of this one.
Yeah.
If an asteroid the size of the sun was heading towards Earth, I'd be like, okay, Dwight is gonna cut a hole in a fence and put sugar in the gas tank of a NASA administrator, and somehow that's gonna blow the asteroid up. There's nothing. You could shoot him in the head with a Davy Crockett man-portable nuke, and I'd be like, oh, he was wearing a helmet.
Yeah. It's like Reacher's the same thing. It's from minute 1 of whatever the season is, you're like, well, Reacher's going to win. You know what I mean? And then there's never a time during the show. There was never a time during this season of Tulsa King where I was like, oh, how's Dwight going to wriggle his way out of this one? Because there's never a time where he's not the smartest guy in the room. And that's my favorite thing, because when a guy this is just Stallone's career. He was always the toughest guy in the movie. He's always trying to be the toughest guy. And he was like, you know what? It's not good enough just to be the toughest guy. I got to be the smartest guy.
Yeah. The dyad that it makes with Sons of Anarchy, that is such a great comparison, because the Sons, I mean, their defining characteristic is that they kind of suck at crime.
Stupid men.
The Sons could they could have a scheme literally to rob a lemonade stand, and it would result in 3,000 dead. And they would be in the hole for $47. It is, Sons of Anarchy is a great show, but it's high anxiety viewing. Whereas Tulsa King, I would even say that I've been a big proponent of bringing back the butterfly net system for the crazies. I think once we catch them with the butterfly net, that's the only harsh part of my program. They should watch Tulsa King and it will like calm them down. They'll be like, well, maybe podcasts are setting me numbers to make me assassinate the president, but I could just get out of it like Dwight.
But Sons of Anarchy all make $20,000 a year. Nothing that they do is successful at all. They've never had a success ever. So it is like really funny to say, what if we did that, but all the success is going to the criminal?
If the Sons of Anarchy attempted to, as Dwight Manfredi and his crew do on this season of the show, open up a wind turbine farm so that they can provide power to a hydroponic marijuana grow facility, so essentially they won't have to pay for energy and they can have 100% profit. If the Sons of Anarchy attempted to do that, one of them would end up seeing their child set on fire in front of them, and then the rest of them sent to prison to be tortured for the rest of their lives. Whereas on this show, basically, like there is no adversary on this show that like is a heavyweight at all. Like for instance, the Cal Thresher character, who was set up this season, I thought to be the main antagonist. He is intimidating for maybe 30 seconds of that show before being revealed to be a completely washed dunce who poses no threat whatsoever to anyone save for himself. Like his plotline on this series is like, I think a metaphor. Like this is what I love Tulsa King, because it's a perfect show for the times we're in now, and it's hard for me not to just read the easy thing about how Stallone is a Trump supporter, and this show is a metaphor for like the positive vision of Trump's America. Because on this show, all of the people you think are evil bad guys, like Frank Grillo or the guy from Band of Brothers, are in fact just dudes like Dwight who are trying to make their way in this world, earn a little bit of money, and really give back to the community. The bad guys on this show are some Chinese guys that are introduced like halfway through the season, and then are like, they're the main adversaries, but then they're really only adversaries for about 5 minutes before, in a climactic moment, all of them walk into an ambush and are killed almost instantly.
That was like, I rewatched that scene several times, not entirely because it's one of the darkest, I mean, in the most literal sense, darkest as in I can't see anything scenes ever depicted on a TV show that people actually watched. I just like, we're all veteran TV heads here, and we know what to expect, but they built up this guy Ming so much. Like Ming's signature crime this season was talking to Thresher, the billionaire who is going head to head with a 95-year-old ex-convict for some reason. And getting a bunch of guys to like point guns at him and make him sign a contract that's like, we own your business now. Which how did no one ever try that before in the world of Tulsa King? I don't know if it's just that easy. But
do I need this notarized? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't it $1,000 too? I love
he
that it was $1,000.
$1,000 for this billionaire's weed concern. And then like the entire season, they talk about how crazy he is. They set up like a little subplot with Dwight's guys and him. And then like, I don't even think they were on the scene of the ambush for 2 seconds before all of them got instantly obliterated by like an all-woman knife squad that we've never seen before.
It was also very funny that the guy that led them into the ambush was a guy that robbed Dwight, but just couldn't go through with it. And turn around.
Yes.
And said, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to do that.
And I mean, like another aspect of like this sort of friction and consequence-free world of crime that this show depicts that I really love is like, Contra, Sons of Anarchy, or other shows like that, where like everything is just like an agonizing moral decision in which you are just further implicated in great evil, and you feel like your head is just in a vice that is tightening every moment. this is like last season, Dwight shows up in Tulsa and within 2 weeks has clocked the entire city and just has several profitable criminal concerns going, but also a kind of mentorship program for the wayward citizens of Tulsa who just haven't had a real criminal to teach them things about, how to do crime with class and respect. But one of my favorite aspects of this season is like when it cuts back to the crew in Brooklyn, Chicky and Vince. And like Chicky is the closest thing to like an actual adversary for Dwight. But like most of the second half of the season is like Chicky's New York crew being like, this guy, he's not the guy anymore. He's got to go. He's got to go. And we all know what that means. And then like, they're like, do you mean kill him? And they're like, no, there are other ways to get rid of a boss. Like sitting him down at a table and explaining that he's, quote, lost the locker room and he should voluntarily step aside for new leadership just so that, like, the fans of their crew could have a little faith that they, could have something. Maybe they'll get like a good draft pick in the Mafia draft next season.
That was literally like how you fire someone from a podcast.
It is so... Like the Chicky thing is so they didn't threaten him or anything, and then it looked like, oh my God, he's going to be the big adversary. He's the final boss in the episode. He just gets shot in the fucking head in like 2 seconds, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that wasn't a big deal either, Like the whole last episode being about Chicky, like getting one over.
Yeah, he takes a bus to Oklahoma and is like, Dwight, I know I wanted to kill you before, but like you got a good thing going out here, and I just want you to be part of the New York crew. We could do this Tulsa thing. We could do it in Oklahoma City. We could do it in Sedona, New Mexico. We could do it all over this shithole country. And then Grillo just shoots him in the head.
Yeah,
Felix,
and he's
I'm wondering if you think that this is accurate. All of Dwight's adversaries on both seasons of Tulsa King are gimmick bosses. They're bosses that may look intimidating, but there's just like one weird trick you do and their entire health bar is obliterated.
Yeah. That is a great analogy. All of them have a glowing red spot in the back of their head. Whenever Dwight sees them, there's like flavor text that pops up that's like, oh no, don't shoot me in the back of my head. That's my only weakness. I want to go back to something that Will said about sort of this being a fantasy of Trump's America, and specifically the comment of how frictionless Dwight's life is. That is, I keyed in on something that I wonder if you guys did as well, that this is kind of like in the same way that I don't know, what's a lived out show that people loved during the Trump administration? The first one.
The Newsroom is the one I can think of, but I think that was pre-Trump.
Well, Newsroom is a good example of this type of thing, but it's like, it is a fantasy for like at least Trump amicable people who watch this. But also Dwight is such a unique character because he's almost like, he's more like a manic pixie dream girl.
Yes.
Than he is like a tough crime boss. Like there are so many times where he fulfills like a Zooey Deschanel role. And I realize that the fantasy of everyone who watches this show, and probably like 200 million Americans, is for like a sagely wizened crime boss to like pull them aside and like see their potential in the field of crime, and along the way, help them self-actualize and get the girl they like. Dwight is like, there are so many things he says where he sounds like an insane woman. He's bringing like whimsy to these people's dreary lives. I expected him to be like, would you still love me if I was a woman?
There's some really good stuff when they're all driving in the truck and he's high on a lollipop and he's fucking, because everybody's on weed. Everybody's just high.
They love weed in this show.
They do. They love and they try to be so. I love the dedication to trying to make it authentic, where they're like, this is elderberry. Because every time you go to a dispensary now, it's like, this is an elderberry gummy that not only gets you high, but it also like makes your alkaloids go up or something. I don't know, but they do that a lot through the episode. But I do want to say that like this season was great because every other criminal in the show was like, Dwight, you're the greatest earner in the history of the mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally said that at one point. This guy's a legend. There's nobody who earns like Dwight does.
We can't kill him. He's great. He's perfect.
He makes too much. I mean, like, I like when they say, like, oh, we can't kill him. He just earns too much money. But the reason they want to kill him is because he's not kicking any of that money back to New York. So that would seem to me to be like more of a reason to kill someone, despite how much money they're making. But like,
maybe
that's because that's because I am brainwashed by the old paradigm of gangster movies and crime films. You know, and to a certain degree, this show is just a collection of shop-worn mafia cliches because, like, half the dialogue is like, hey, what the fuck you talking about? You questioning my authority over here? But that being said, what it's actually doing is, I think, a totally, like I said, a totally novel subversion of those tropes by just being like, actually, these guys are actually quite good fellas. They're good men, basically, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no one is irredeemable lest they be Chinese.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That is the message of the show. That everyone, it doesn't matter if you are like a bitter, abusive drunk who robs Dwight and then goes to your former place of work, presumably to kill every single person there. You're just like one heartfelt speech away from turning it around. Offer does not apply to Han Chinese.
Yeah. I mean, I love the storyline of and I can't ever remember any guy's name, but the dude that does rob Dwight, and they're like, he'll never be able. They're like, he'll never be able to hide. It's like he could go to Mexico and they would literally never find him. Like, how would Dwight find a guy in Mexico? But he would actually find a guy in Mexico if that had come down to it. That's why he had to turn around. And then, like, I'm hoping he gets back with his family. Like, doesn't get tied up at all. He's like, I'd like to get my job back so I can get my family back. I was
and
like,
he gets his job back, too.
Yes.
That sums up to be, like, everything with this show. Like, there is, like, it's so funny because, like, violence happens. Like, people are killed. But, like, nothing, like, how do I say this? People are killed, but nothing bad happens to anyone on the show outside of a few characters who, like, are. I guess Jimmy the Creek, their sort of native weed contact. He unfortunately meets his end this season, but that's it. And like the scene where Tyson gives his dad Stallone's Lincoln Navigator and there's a bomb inside of it, and the episode ends on a cliffhanger where the car blows up, I was like, oh shit, this show is introducing the concept of consequences. Like, hey, maybe pursuing a life of crime has horrible effects on you and your family. But no, like the next episode, the dad is just like, looks like he fell down like a stair. Looks like he sprained his ankle in the hospital. He's like, hey, son, it's good to see you back here. Thanks for the car. Sorry, it blew up.
Yeah. It serves to bring his family back together.
Yes.
There was almost a moment of conflict there where the son there's a bunch of dramatic scenes where he's at his dad's bedside and he's like, I'm going to kill the guys who did this. And they're really playing it up, but the drama is sort of tempered by the fact that the son is dressed like Bruno Mars. He had to put on like a silk vest and like a fedora with 3 buckles on it to go to the hospital.
Well, they go to the big party at the beginning and get suits, and from that point on, Tyson is in a suit for the rest of the thing.
He never takes it off. He dresses like he's presumably going to dress like Bruno Mars for the rest of the fucking series.
Right.
But there's like initially a little drama there where his mom is like, you're just like gonna go into a life of crime. We've lost you. It's almost like sort of like a kitchen sink, like it's like Baby Boy or something, like a kitchen sink black drama from like the 2000s or 90s, except instead of like gangs or something, their dominant fear is that their son would always fall in with a 95-year-old mafioso. Like, something that every black family
presumably
worries
there are
about.
bad neighborhoods in Tulsa where people do crimes, but it's just like, no, he happened to give a ride to Dwight Manfredi once, and now you look like a gangster, son. And like, yeah, like, and like you think his mom might be mad at him because of like his actions nearly killed his own father. But like, no, the dad is like, being nearly killed in mafia violence taught me one thing. I nearly lost my life. I don't want to lose my family. And then the mother's like, all is forgiven, son. All is forgiven for Tyson. All is forgiven from Armin for his betrayal. And you'll remember there's a part where Tyson, Felix, like you mentioned, like he's like, I've never killed anyone, but like these guys came at my family. And if I don't stand on this, like I'll never be a man. They came at my father. That's my blood. And then like the Garrett Hedgeland character, the sort of like the cowboy country singer guy who buys the car dealership.
I love him.
He tells Tyson, he's like, look, I've done hard time. And I'm going to tell you, like, if you're talking about killing people, like once you do that, you can never go back. Like if you kill someone, it's going to fuck you up for the rest of your life. You're going to see their face every time you like close your eyes and your head hits the pillow. And you're like, okay, like seems to be introducing a note of reality there. Then when they get Ming and he's like totally at their mercy, Stallone hands him a tomahawk that their Native American friends gave them to mete out revenge on the guy responsible for killing Jimmy the Creek. And like he holds it for a second and I just think like, hey, he's going to pass it off. Like he's not really about this life. Nope. He plants it firmly in the guy's forehead and just walks away and is like, yeah, I did the right thing.
Yeah.
It's just
like next season, there might be like one scene where he wakes up like having a nightmare about it, but then like they're going to find like a strain of weed that helps with PTSD and we'll never hear about it again.
I don't think he's ever going to think about it. I would guess. And there's another weird thing that happens too is the woman. Well, first of all, Dwight is he's got a girlfriend this season that's not a cop, but like also her horse, the horse stables. There's this girl that works there that is the worst actor in the entire world. Like that it feels like English as a second language is going on or something like that. And like the dude just yells at her. And then she's like, you're in charge of the horse place now. And she's like, oh, I don't feel like doing that. I'm just going to move on. Like she quits the stables. That was very weird to me too. Cause it felt like, okay, like she's not even like really in the show. She's there so that guy can yell at somebody.
Yeah. That girl is such a weird character because it's like, is she like does Hawk Tuah have body doubles like Saddam? And is that one of them? It's the only purpose I could see her serving. But yeah, the guy who yells at her, I think we have to look at him as sort of like a window into the souls of the actual dominant viewers of this show. The scene where after he like throws a tantrum in the stables and is about to rob Dwight, where he calls his sons, I don't know how relatable this is to people, but like if you've ever had a dad who's like he messed up, like maybe he didn't kill somebody or commit a crime, but he like he fucked up in some way. And they have to like call upon every movie and book they've ever read to like deliver sort of like an emotional speech to their children. And it's just like they don't have it. They were waiting for this moment their entire lives, and their speech is like, listen, I know times are really hard, but like, you're my son. And it's like that. Whoever wrote that scene, it's like you were just intimately acquainted with having a dad who screws up. That was
Felix,
great.
The most heartbreaking moment of that scene is like right when he's about to get off the call and he's like drunk in his car, leaving a voice message for his like 7-year-old son. And he's like, you're a big guy now and I can talk to you like a man. So you should know your dad's a failure and is probably going to kill himself. But right when he gets on the phone with him, he says, like, all I think about is like, we had good times and I want you to remember those. But I'm beginning to get the impression that when you think about me, all you'll think about is this phone call. Anyway, gotta go. Bye. I was like, oh God.
Yeah. It's just, like it's perfect. It's like way too weighty for a 7-year-old, but then he just like leaves him with a few truisms like family's really important. And that is just elite bad dad writing.
And your future, what is like your check always comes due. It sounded like everything's written by seemingly the same person, because there's no real difference between him and Dwight other than Dwight is better than he is at everything.
He's Dwight's Frank Grimes.
Yes, Armin. Oh my God, Armin is Dwight's Frank Grimes.
Yeah,
but Frank Grimes dies in The Simpsons. Like, he has to die. Armin lives and is still in the crew at the end of the show. Nothing bad happens to him. Yes,
no,
all is forgiven.
Armin has to live. Armin has to live because, like, you know, The Simpsons is a kind of a cruel world. Tulsa King is like, you know, again, like you said, people die in the show, but it's one of the most consequence-free worlds ever.
Yes.
Armin has to live so the viewer feels like that they have, like, that the redemption is in the cards for them, you know?
They killed the one guy in the crew that wasn't around that much anyway. Like, he it feels like that was the guy they brought in to kill, and then they had Tyson's dad, where they could blow him up. They don't kill him. But you knew from the beginning. I thought Frank Grillo was going to get killed.
Yeah,
but he lives Brian, too.
I thought Cal was going to get killed. I wanted to talk about the Cal Thresher character, played by Neil McDonough from Band of Brothers and Justified. You see him in a show, you're like, oh, that's the villain. And, like, you know, we talked about their hilarious dialogue between him and Stallone. I tried to recreate it on the first episode, but I actually transcribed the dialogue from episode 5 of this show. So Cal Thresher, the Oklahoma billionaire, he's an Oklahoma oil billionaire who is somehow also involved in the weed industry, and it's really important to him that one 90-year-old Italian man not make any profit selling marijuana in the state of Oklahoma. So he comes by Dwight's girlfriend's ranch, the horse ranch, because, you know, he has horses there too, and he knows Dana Delaney. And he steps up to Dwight and he goes, Mr. Manfredi, I see we're both here breaking fillies. And then Dwight says, I'm going to break your fucking jaw if you don't stop interfering in my fucking business. And he goes, oh, Mr. Manfredi, just the other week, you were the one rhapsodizing about the virtues of competition. And he goes, good competition, not the shit you're trying to pull. You're in so far over your head, you have no fucking idea with the world you're fucking with. That's where you're wrong. You're in so far over your head, not me.
That's why he makes the big bucks.
Yeah. So, like, you have this guy, he's got the icy blue eyes, he's got the bleach blonde hair, he's this, like, fake cowboy billionaire type who's, like, you know, doing nefarious dealings with Chinese triads from New York who are growing opium on his marijuana fields and using slaves to do it. You're like, okay, this guy's evil. He's the series antagonist. Even the villain gets a redemption arc. Because, like, I was expecting Dwight to kill him for certain. It was either going to be him or Grillo. Him and Grillo live. And at the end of the show, they basically all work together. Yeah. And then, like, at the end, the last episode, the last sort of showdown between Dwight and Cal Thresher is like, Cal is totally at his mercy. Dwight has intervened on his behalf to take care of his Chinese problem. Yeah. By that, I mean killing everyone who used to work for him. And then he's like trying to dictate terms or whatever. And Dwight's like, you know, I'd be well in my rights to fucking kill you right now. And he's like, oh, Mr. Manfredi, you won't do that. Please be serious. And then, like, he fronts, he's like, hey, Bigfoot, shoot this motherfucker in the head. And then he doesn't. And then, like, he walks away, but not before Dwight imparts another valuable like piece of mentorship and life advice, where basically, like, this guy who's tried to kill him multiple times has fucked with his business, fucked with his money, and spilled blood. He's like, guys like you, they don't belong in this world with guys like me. You know, like, I'm a gangster. If you try to do gangster stuff, if you try to do crime, you're going to get hurt. So just stick to doing the rich guy stuff and leave the crime to me. And then he's like, thanks, I'll do that.
That's
and
fair.
Walks away. Yeah, that's fair.
Which, like, it raises the question of, like, why was this billionaire so intent on, like, making probably, an extra $60,000 a year from highly illegal crimes?
Selling eighths.
Yeah. I love it. I love every, because he's like, at the beginning, he's like, you need to get these opium fields out of my property. And the guy's like, no. And he's like, all right, well, I tried.
So he's such a pushover. Like, it's amazing. Like, this entire war that he fucking has with Dwight, it happened because Dwight and his crew of imbeciles, like, planned, like, an inorganic meet cute with him at a casino. And Dwight was like, hey, I hear you're the guy to talk to in town. And he's like, well, I hear you're coming for me with your vape shop and one illegal weed plant and your pending wind farm deal that doesn't make sense to anyone.
That is great. He's just like a guy at the beginning is like, hey, there's a fucking I did this wind farm scam, and Dwight's like, wind farm scam, I'm in. Completely takes it over and is like, hey.
Have you guys ever seen the show John from Cincinnati?
Oh, of course. I don't know, but she instead.
Yeah, Dwight is almost like John from Cincinnati because you know how in that show, John can just like any object of desire, he can just pull out of his pockets. Yeah. Like there's this magical realism element. That's what Dwight's crimes are like. Like, yes. Like any object of desire, like a wind farm. Okay, let's go to a bank and steal pens. Within 10 minutes, we'll have a $20 million loan to buy the fucking wind farm. Oh, we need transportation. Let's cut a hole in the fence of the car dealership. Now we own the car dealership.
Yes.
Exactly.
They do. The country music guy does own the car dealership. The country music guy that owns the bar, who is like Dwight's number 3, because there's the other gangster from New York that's his number 2. Because like in the thing, in order to be at the top of the gang, that's New York. You gotta be Dwight or the other New York guy. And then after that, Tulsa guys come in, and that's where the country music guy that just like kind of sings tush a couple times during the when they're having a party or something over some victory that Dwight has pulled off.
You know, and it's like they keep introducing characters like we mentioned Annabella Sciorra plays Dwight's sister, and she shows up in Tulsa. Dwight's daughter and grandkids show up in Tulsa. But like whether it's the cowboy guy who owns the bar and now the car dealership, or poor Martin Starr. And I don't want to be critical of a show that I like very much, but it does seem like a lot of these ancillary characters, they really had no. I mean, we mentioned this in the first episode about this season, but they really like just didn't have much for any of the other characters to do. Like Martin Starr is just really kind of in the background this season, and like he just shows up in like kind of like here and there to just be like, Dwight, I'm working on the wind farm, like. And it's just like, he'll just make a snarky comment, but like, he's never really in any danger, nor is he involved in any plot that is like essential towards, what happens on the show. He's just sort of there. And then like the cowboy guy is like, okay, his plot arc this season is buying a car dealership, and he does with no problem.
Yeah. The car dealership that they stole all the catalytic converters from and then returned half of them. I was like, I wanted to know the logistics of the returning of the catalytic converters, because you chop those off and then he was going to have to install the other half of them. Like that guy, his whole story is also like pretty consequence free. Like he's kind of a dick at the beginning. He's a racist guy at the beginning. And then by the end of the season, it's like, I sold all my cars and now I don't have a car dealership anymore and I just have a ton of money. Like his whole thing ended up perfectly. Like he even was a guy in Dan Bacadol, that character too. Like he's a dick to Dwight twice, and then he sees Dwight on TV and he's like, "You're great. What a great man."
I think we figured it out. Or like, tell me if I'm onto something here. Dan Bacadol, the cowboy guy, and Armin. These all represent like archetypes of Trump voters, or like Tulsa King watchers, basically like middle American archetypes. Cowboy guy represents racism, being disinvited from your own Thanksgiving because of tirade you went on. The Armin, it's obvious that he represents like, being an alcoholic, being a bad dad, being a fuck up. And Dan Bacadol represents like, I guess like HOA nosiness.
A suburban tyrant.
A pussy too. Like kind of a pussy though that has some authority. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And all of these, they're all like, who is the thief that was crucified next to Christ?
Barabbas.
They all form a single Barabbas. That
they have to be let off the cross.
Yeah, Dwight, he doesn't even suffer for their sins. I mean, Dwight succeeds for their sins.
Yes. That is such a good way of putting it. Dwight succeeds on behalf of others' sins and their fallen nature. And the fallen nature of man and America is redeemed by Dwight's many, many wins. Not any sacrifice he's made, just his successes. And this is where I go back to, like, I think the show is the perfect sort of like crystal like embodiment of like the projection of Trump's America. And like, again, that's an easy thing to say, but Dwight is such a perfect analog for Donald Trump because, like, if you want to talk about consequence free, I just saw that the New York Southern District has postponed indefinitely any sentencing for Donald Trump. And it's like, that is a total Dwight Manfredi thing to have happen, where it's like, it seems like he's in trouble for a half a second. And then it's just like, oh, he's elected president. That's over. Oh, well.
Yeah, the day after election day, the only thing I could think, I was just like, rich guys just always win and they will always win. Like, that's the lesson of this show too.
But not only does it portray a world, like I get it does a revolutionary thing, and it is a television show that literally shows that crime pays and is good for you and is good for the community.
Yeah.
And like I think about there's one moment on the show where the Ming character, the closest thing the show has to a villain, you know, an evil celestial who's polluting America, who came here as an immigrant. And there's a moment where like Ming, I think, really like gets to the heart of what this show's about, where he talks about how he came over here as like a refugee and would like spend years just like washing dishes for like pennies. But he was like, you know, I bided my time, I waited and I watched and I learned about Americans. And Cal's like, oh, what'd you learn about Americans? Like, very glibly. And he's like, I learned that they're lazy and spoiled. And that, like, they don't have the will to be ruthless like I can. Because, like, I came here with nothing. And, like, you know, I have the drive. And I think, like, it speaks to this fear that I think, like, Trump is very good adept at, like, sort of speaking to, this idea that, like, we've gotten soft as a nation. But sort of conversely, the show depicts like not hard men who are willing to be ruthless, but just like men who do crimes and suffer no consequences. And in doing so, redeem the nation, redeem America, and like connect us with the class, respect, and a certain way of doing things back in the old ways. But like that's not through any real grit or determination or like hard grafting or even like hard living or consequences or violence. It's just sort of like you just see what you want and you do it. And, you know, like, yeah, people may die, but, like, it's not really a problem for anyone. And even your enemies are redeemed by you and learn a valuable life lesson just from their association in trying to compete with you or best you in some way.
Yeah. The only reason that anyone could possibly think that we're soft or that you're soft is because everything is so incredibly easy to you. But
exactly.
Yeah, like even in armed conflict, you can produce your own night witches. Your own.
They didn't lose a single guy in that either. None. Zero guys. They easily killed every single guy in the Chinese gang, like in seconds. It was just the easiest thing in the world. There were like 100 guys with guns, like.
They were rolling up with like AKs.
Yeah.
And like everything you've been led to believe before. It's like, oh, these are the inscrutable, ruthless Chinese. Human life has no value to them. They're cold-blooded killers. Like, you know, like, and it's just like, nope, done, easily dispatched with no difficulty whatsoever.
The other great American thing in this was the way Ming dies. We get to see a decent amount of time of him begging to not be killed. Like he's all of a sudden like scared.
See? The Chinese, it's all talk. It's all talk with them. They're not actually ruthless. And they're not actually really thinking 1,000 years in the future. They're just, you know, just walk them into an ambush and kill them. It's easy.
But we want to see our enemies suffer. Not only suffer, but we want to see our enemies say, you were right about everything. I'm really sorry about that. And then die.
And the thing about that is like, yeah, our enemies may seem scary, but that's only when we are as individuals who are just potheads from Tulsa, Oklahoma, or just an Uber driver. What we need is a leader. We need a leader to like channel the will, the body politic into to impose a kind of revolutionary discipline on the masses. And that figure is Dwight the General Manfredi.
Did you guys notice this aspect of Ming's character they introduced probably, I would say, halfway through the season, right before he sort of betrays Neil McDonough? He starts dropping like Art of War style pearls of wisdom in all of his scenes. Like, there's it. I like wrote down like 3 times where he's just like doing exposition with Neil McDonough. And he'll just randomly say something like, when your enemy is downhill, you don't have to walk as fast.
He's like, also, when you have a snake, don't cut off its tail, cut off its head because that will kill it.
Yeah. I also love that the second Dwight gets a whiff that the Chinese are involved, he's like, it's the triads. What they're going to do is they're going to set up all the stuff and then they're going to make him sell his farm for $1,000. They do it every time. We know what they're going to do. Like he called it.
Wait, China is buying up farmland in America. I hear about that all the time. I hear about it all the time.
That's how they're doing it too. They're going to like good-hearted farmers and bringing a bunch of triads and making them sign it away for $1,000.
They're finding the nastiest rich guy in town and stealing all of his stuff, like living off of him, I guess. Like I did like Thresher in that like there's never like he meets Dwight. It's contentious right away. He goes to the attorney general and he's like, you gotta fucking win this case. And the attorney general loses immediately. I'm like episode 3.
Another dub in episode 2 of the show has been like, we gave it our best, but we couldn't get this like 90-year-old man out on parole back in prison for any reason.
This gangster that's representing himself too, which is also very Trump, as in like, this guy can just go on stage and talk and people will just be like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know what I mean? He makes me happy. I don't know what you want me to say. That's how he seemed to win that case at the beginning of the movie or the series.
Yeah, like the federal conviction rate is like 96%. And Dwight's defense is just like, would you say that you came a lot when you had sex with me?
Yeah.
And everyone in the court is like, we've heard enough.
Wait, so what's the difference? I'm sorry. It's a gift, not a bribe. That is such regular fucking guy at work understanding of how the legal system works, that like you can just go and stand there and say something that's not really logical and doesn't really make sense, but then look really confident about it and boom, you're off. You can get away with it. Like that is the other thing that Dwight, I think, because I like Reacher a lot also because he's like the smartest guy in the room. But he kind of
the strongest and most unkillable guy in the room too.
Yeah, but he has a kind of like a weirdly intelligent, like when he figures something out, he has like the whole explanation figured out, mapped out.
He's like the world's greatest detective in addition to being the world's largest, most dangerous man.
Yes. With Dwight, like nothing he says ever sounds smart, but it's delivered by a guy who firmly believes that what he's saying is completely intelligent. And that's what I think grabs me more about Tulsa King, is that like, it is like a really dumb guy's idea of what a really street smart guy is, like what they believe to be street smart. And like that, I think that's what grabs me more than anything, is like, because you'll meet a lot of guys out there who are like, I'm street smart. And it's like, no, you're just stupid. Like,
yeah.
Brian, do you remember the scene where they visit like the sort of like elite private school that Stallone's daughter wants to send his grandkids to?
Yeah.
And it's like the first 5 minutes of the episode is like, you could smell this coming a mile away. But it's this like, very, very crunchy daycare where like, not daycare, but like, middle school where they're like self-expression and creativity are our most important values here. And then, Dwight's walking around being like, oh, wait, would you teach knife fighting here or something? Or what about, hey, you got to learn math about how to do the VIG, right? How do I know who owes me money? And then they're like, well, athletics are very important. He's like, oh, you got a football team? And they're like, oh, Lord, no, that's too violent. We have a basketball and swimming team, though, but, we don't actually this is what I love the writing on the show. They say, we have a basketball team, but we don't keep track of the score. We stress passing over shooting. And he's like, how are you going to know who wins the game? And then Dwight suggests to his daughter and the principal of this school, this, very exclusive school they're trying to apply to. He's like, good kids learn reading, writing, arithmetic, but they never go really use it. Why do you have a class about street smarts? Yeah, a lot of these kids out here, they're going to encounter situations, some guy's trying to press up on them, they won't know what to do. So he literally suggested, and I'm hoping next season, he actually becomes, a teacher emeritus and teaches, a class on street smarts to, Gen Alpha pussies who are just, been taught that, self-expression and creativity are important, where it's no, you got to learn how to never snitch on nobody and stand up for yourself.
What Bryan said about, Dwight representing himself and just his way of verbalizing against the world, it's almost it's a perfect inversion of West Wing and Newsroom, because those shows are about how if the content of what you're saying is strong enough, if the exact thrust of your point and the data and the facts are there are unimpeachable, then you can change anyone's mind and therefore you can save the world. Tulsa King inverts that by going, the content doesn't really matter, because what Dwight is always saying is something like, well, there's more than one ways to peel an apple, but the confidence and style and form of it is so powerful that he can get out of anything. You save the world by winning every gunfight somehow. But
an argument though too. That's the thing. He wins every argument, but nothing he ever says really makes sense. He comes off in this season. I think I said the last season he comes off as old, so old. Now he comes off as even old. I didn't think he could seem older, but he seems so old this season that I'm actually kind of worried, because the way this ends.
No, we can talk about the cliffhanger.
Yeah, just the way this ends. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
And it's the way it ends is so funny, because we talked about how this show is just an unblemished record of Dwight batting 1,000. Yeah, everyone loves him. He's never wrong. Somehow, just any situation he's in, he is not there's in no way is he ever disempowered or not in control. And then the season ends with they have a big party at the bar, and they're like, look, we have a commercial for our new auto dealership, and my criminal gang of potheads, goth girls, and just stoners and just random people off the street who have never killed anyone in their life are now they're clocking money over hand over fist. They have the whole Midwest locked down. He's got his girlfriend. He goes to sleep with her. And then the feds just someone just raids and puts a black bag over his head, throws him in a cargo plane, renders him to some black site, pulls the bag off his head, shines the light in his face. And they're like, you work for us now. Season over. And I'm like, the CIA is like, we've been hearing a lot of things about how good you're doing in Tulsa. We're moving you to our Beirut desk now.
Yeah, he's going to run Afghanistan by the end of the next season. He's going to be like, I got some poppy seeds in Afghanistan. I was able to, talk the Taliban into working with me.
Yeah, no, it is going to be like Charlie Wilson's War. But he's going to go up to the Taliban and be like, haven't you ever thought about letting the girls read a book for once?
Look, take my sister. She, a lot of people think she wasn't so smart, but you know what? She ran the numbers better than anyone in the neighborhood, and that's because she knew how to read books and stuff.
I think of my sister. She thought about putting a drive-through at a weed dispensary when they decide they're going to make it really successful, and she's like, "We'll sell cookies and have a drive-through."
And also she hips them to the world of drop shipping, and they're like,
Yes.
we never considered that. No, this is such a perfect Trump America show, because like everyone can just be an independent criminal entrepreneur doing the crypto scams, drop shipping, weed selling, just like whatever you have it. But you need a leader. You need a leader like Donald J. Manfredi to inspire the people to become better, more criminal versions of themselves.
He is gonna run a course at Quantico. And like at the beginning of the season, they're gonna be like, so John or Dwight, how does the mafia work? And then he's gonna give like a really eloquent speech to a bunch of CIA agents.
Yeah, like now that the CIA is introduced, there's like no upper limit for Dwight's triumphs.
No,
Like Dwight is going to defeat the deep state.
for sure. 100%. He is going to string them along until episode 10. And then he's going to be like the president or like on the president's cabinet. He was able to tell the president, like, sometimes, man, you can run numbers on the government. I don't know. He's like, this politics thing's a real good scam over here.
Yeah, he's gonna.
It turns out the Pentagon needed 8 million catalytic converters.
Yes. That's what he's gonna do. They'll get a Pentagon money for anything.
He'll replace federal income tax with like a weird lottery system.
Yes.
Martin Starr will take one look at like the Federal Reserve's books and be like, "This can't possibly be right. I created an app to get all our money back."
I would love to see them get back on the gold standard at the end of Tulsa King season 3.
Yeah,
Incredible.
The thing about this Fugazi money is that there's nothing backing it up.
After Dwight like takes down the deep state, then like what's left? I mean, obviously the out I would have is like this character was introduced at age 97, but I don't think normal biology applies to him. But like, what would be next? Well, who could he possibly go against after that?
It doesn't. It would have to be the Chinese government. It feels like he might be going after the Chinese government in the next season. I don't know if it's going to be him versus the CIA. I think it's going to be him helping the CIA with an enemy that is far worse than Chicky or Bevilacqua or something like that. Like it's like we got to take down the Chinese Communist Party or like North Korea. And I don't know how he's going to do it, but he's going to figure out a way to win like a Cold War with crime.
Like,
is what I would get.
Turns out Mahjong's just another form of gambling, and I don't know how that works.
I could see. I wish you could bet on the show.
Yeah.
Because now that the deep state's introduced, I think there's going to be like, if we're cribbing off Sons of Anarchy, there is going to be like a cartel storyline, and the cartel is going to be really scary, like face tattoos. Like the show is probably just going to like conflate them with MS-13, but like obviously
Mexico Super 13. That's what the gang stands for.
Yeah.
yeah. Mexico Spanish 13. But obviously these guys may seem scary, but they've never dealt with like a real mobster before, a true gentleman gangster. And like Dwight is going to take down Los Zetas with like 4 guys, 2 of which are former and actually probably current Uber drivers.
So what if we go to China? What if we go to China and maybe leak a virus out of a laboratory? Really give it to them over there.
Okay, I got an idea for a scam. We have something called the Black Eagle Trust. We put all this gold in the basement of the World Trade Center. We fabricate 19 Saudi and Egyptian nationals. And all the proof of our crime is in building 7.
Well, the fucking thing is like they ended last season like it was the end of the show. Like that everything turned out well. They ended this one saying like Sylvester Stallone is definitely going to live long enough to do a 3rd season. And you're right. I don't know where else you go after this, other than, again, Sylvester Stallone uniting all of the America's crime families and going after China or North Korea is the only thing I can think of that he could be possibly doing.
Oh, wait. Do you think that they'll do like an Epstein character?
Yes.
That would be.
They will do an Epstein character, but like he'll learn the error of his ways and then become an ally of Dwight. He'll be in the crew at the end.
Exactly. He'll gotta have him of age and let him choose.
Not for nothing, Jeffrey, but I think 17's a little young. Just make sure to check the birth certificate, and then bing bang boom, we're gonna be human trafficking all over the country.
Dwight will literally sit him down and be like, you may think it's fun to hook up with these 15-year-olds, but they ain't ready yet. And this evil pedophile will be like, I never thought about it that way. I'm going to apologize to my victims, and I'll run a legal prostitution ring with you in Tulsa.
You got to give them a choice. It ain't right to just make them do it. You got to let them choose if they want to be human trafficked.
I read this book by this fat broad named Andrea Dworkin in prison. Turns out all penetrative sex is rape, at least in the heterosexual context. But that don't mean that it's okay to knock boots with a 15-year-old.
Dude, the quotes from books, they're so infrequent in the series. Like, he doesn't do it all that often, but he
quotes Machiavelli this season.
Yes. It's Machiavelli and then one other
Oscar
guy,
Wilde.
like Oscar Wilde. Okay, yeah, those two guys. Like, I'm picturing him like trying to read one of those books in prison, like that. Dwight just sitting down and reading an Oscar Wilde book would be that's enough for me, right? They need to do a prequel.
There was this guy, I know this guy. He was really into art. He bought a portrait of himself, but he just kept it in his attic. But the thing is, if you don't take care of the art, it starts looking like shit. So what I learned from that story is if you buy art, you gotta keep it someplace dry and with good lighting.
I read this book called Revolutionary Road. This woman, she performs badly in a community play. Then the whole marriage kaputs. You gotta support your wife's hobbies.
The prequel, if they could find a guy that is as impossible. Actually, they should just do a prequel and have Sylvester Stallone play.
No, they should have Frank Stallone do it.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see them be like, no, this is 1993 Dwight Manfredi, and it's still Sylvester Stallone, but wearing like
exactly
stripes.
The same.
Yeah.
But I mean, you talked about like Stallone's. Look, God bless Stallone. He's an American icon. He's doing great work on this show. But like his face, man, like his nose and eyebrows look like Mr. Potato Head. It looks like someone just stuck them on his face. He like he's looking odd. He went to the plastic surgeon and was like, could you give me a Romulan with facial hair? That's what he was going for.
He has these strange veins right on his neck area. These just blue fucking. He's very vascular in the neck area.
I mean, like, imagine being as old as he is and being on that much gear. Like, it's fucking crazy.
Oh my God. His organ. I mean, you talked about getting bosses earlier. If you fought him, his organs would glow. You're like a Zelda boss. While we're like betting on things that will be in future episodes, I would like to lay a marker down. I think that there's going to be like a scary gangster rapper, but it's going to be like very dated. It's going to be like a 1990. It's going to be like NWA.
Yeah.
Like something from 30 years ago.
He's going to get in a turf war with Tyson, who also at one point wanted to be a rapper this season, and then just it never came up again. But you could see that happening too, because their weed store has a recording studio that Jelly Roll shows up to perform in and like fools Dwight. He's like, Dwight's like, you can maybe be a janitor someday. He sings a song and Dwight's like, you guys tricked me.
I think that like, because these are all like everything that I've ever seen on Facebook. And Brian, I know you're a huge fan of this genre of post as well, where people are like, oh, what if Chief Keef ran into Al Capone?
Two of Chicago's greatest.
Yeah, I think that sort of thing where people are like, these so-called gangsters, if they ever met Lucky Luciano, he'd show them a thing or two about respect. I think that's going to come to fruition. I think we're going to see something like that.
I want that. A boss battle between like the Crips and the Mafia and see who wins. And of course, it's going to be Dwight.
Dwight is going to unite the Bloods and the Crips. They're going to tie the bandanas together and they're going to be like, hey, Dwight hooked us up with these wind farms. Now we don't have to bang anymore.
He would literally go up to the Bloods and Crips and be like, I don't get what you guys don't like about each other. You're both primary colors.
Hey, you got the red, you got the blue, and I'm white. You got some Menaker right there, baby. Hey, you mentioned Lucky Luciano. I always forget that Terrence Winter is the head writer for this show, who did The Sopranos, Boardwalk Empire, and Wolf of Wall Street, which is why, like, I like that he's doing this experiment where, like, all those shows are just about how, like, totally evil and depraved, like, the criminal mindset is, and how, like, it is just like a one-way ticket to hell. But now it's just like he gets to portray a gangster, unlike Gyp Rossetti, like from Boardwalk Empire, who like a character who like every time he's on screen, you're like on edge because he could just kill someone at any moment for any reason. Whereas Dwight is just a guy who's like, yeah, he's a criminal, but he's just so basically kind and decent to everyone around him that like, can he really be called a criminal?
But also not really decent to anybody around him. Like everybody that's in his crew was strong-armed by him at some point.
Yeah, but that's what a leader needs to do. He needs to bring the people along with him. They may not have wanted to do it, but that's because they lacked motivation, leadership. They needed a little bit of strong-arming to become successful.
And that's why your boss is such a dick. Like that's exactly, he has to be at first, and then after a while, he gets over it and he's nice to you, I guess. He imparts his boss wisdom on you, and then you can maybe one day be a boss somewhere.
I would like to point out that Terrence Winter, there's another seminal work that he did in his career. Get Rich or Die Trying, the movie.
Oh, the 50 Cent movie?
Oh, did he?
Yes. Yeah. There's actually,
I'm looking.
There's a joke in Sopranos season 6 about that. Like, Christopher, when he's dating Juliana Skiff, he goes, she's sick, and he comes home with a DVD, and he's like, I got that new 50 Cent movie. They were giving it away for free at the car wash.
That.
Yeah.
I actually looked at his Rotten Tomatoes for some reason, and he also did a movie called Brooklyn Rules that says a college student, Freddie Prinze Jr., feels torn by loyalty to his friends and a desire to earn a law degree and escape from his old neighborhood. So Freddie Prinze Jr. is a mafia boss, and Alec Baldwin being in the supporting cast. I might watch that now.
I mean, like, I guess another thing I like about this show is how utterly bedraggled and bereft it, like, I think realistically portrays what is left of the Italian mafia in New York City. Because it really is just like your crew is just the 4 guys who sit in like a coffee shop staring at each other all day going, what the fuck's the matter with you? Where the fuck you been? Hey, well, someone pick up around here. And like they're making money stealing Amazon packages.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. That's who's stealing the Amazon packages.
It's Go West, go West, old man. It should be the subhead for this show. But like, it's like the old mafia that's done. All that racism shit is over. Now we need a diverse working class coalition of potheads, wannabe rappers, goth chicks, Native Americans, and just anyone who wants to get on board for Donald Trump's America.
It's
like every group that broke Republican this election is part of Dwight's crew.
Yeah. He just doesn't have a gay guy yet, but he will get a gay guy eventually.
Oh my, yeah. No, there's going to be a gay guy, a rapper. There's going to be everything. It really, it's the exact Trump 2020 and 2024 coalition. I'm trying to think. I think the most realistic portrayal I've ever seen of the mafia before this is in Kill a Season, where the mafia is just on standby to butcher dead bodies for Cameron.
Or like in Donnie Brasco, where they're just like hammering open parking meters for coins.
The mafia is really like Rudy really did a number on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Rico more than anything. You could really ruin any organization with Rico, but it does make me sad. Like when I read that, like both the mafia and the Yakuza are like dwindling. I really feel like there should be like a grace period to let them rebuild a little.
Or like you should like if you're a violent criminal brother, like the ancient criminal brotherhood, like the Yakuza or the Cosa Nostra, I think they should just be grandfathered in. And if you maintain an unbroken tradition of crime for like a couple centuries, you should just be allowed to like do some prostitution, do some gambling. You know, just give the people what they want, and do it most importantly with class and style.
And pretend not to do drugs. Pretend not to sell drugs.
And pretend like you're not selling fentanyl.
Yeah. Every mafia guy ever. We don't push drugs because that ruins communities.
We don't sell drugs in our grandmother's neighborhood, but everyone else, fuck them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what if my grandmother copped a bag of skag?
Guy walks out on his grandma shooting heroin. This is why we don't do it over here.
Can you think about how annoying it would be to show your grandmother how to like smoke an OxyContin? like getting her to use an iPad is already like awful. That's designed for them.
Wait. Your grandma, like she probably grew up in the Great Depression where they were like, heating their house with like shoe polish or whatever. I think they could figure out how to fucking cook pills down. It's just the apps and stuff. They don't the email and PDF they don't get.
Yeah.
That's what I'm collecting now is old morphine bottles and stuff off eBay. I've been buying like old heroin bottles and old morphine bottles.
Oh, back when it was like a medicine?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I like am bidding on this like German, it's like a cup that German pharmacists use to measure stuff, and it just has heroin on it. And I'm like, oh, I need that. That I need.
It used to be so pro-social. Like Hermann Goering would just like go to, the Wehrmacht pharmacist and be like, 50 bottles of morphine, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I got a toothache. Here's a bunch of cocaine. Enjoy.
Yeah, here's an ounce of pure cocaine.
Someone used to be so good.
Someone told me.
By the way, and when all the mafia families are dwindling and going away, look at the fucking state of things now.
Yeah. It's bad, I think.
No, yeah. Like in an ideal world, there would be no RICO Act. I'm against the RICO Act just on principle.
It's not fair.
Unconstitutional.
It's just not. It's not fair.
It's not fair. More than anything, it's not fair. I don't like that. Do you imagine if King Von had like a Dwight type figure in his life? Imagine if Lil Durk did. Lil Durk would not be on trial for federal murder charges.
I mean, no criminal would. Well, all criminals would be defending themselves. If they were into Dwight. I mean, that is a thing that I like about this is that imagining a world where I, as a stupid idiot, could get in trouble and then talk my way out of it to a court of law that's a beautiful world to me. Like that, and that's how you could help the mafia too. Just be like, hey, they're allowed to defend themselves, and there's no rules anymore. We start over, and the jury just has to be like, yeah, that's fine. Because that's what they did in this.
That Vin Diesel movie, Find Me Guilty?
Oh, it's a great movie actually.
Yeah.
Very good. Sidney Lumet.
Yes.
I don't have many further thoughts about Tulsa King. I just have a few minor just remembrances, and I guess the one that comes to mind is when Tyson is taking his dad around in the Navigator before it blows up, and he's like, his old jalopy is broken down, and he's like, Dad, I can drive you around, and like it's like. His dad reacts to being in a Navigator like he's never been in a car with air conditioning or like a CD player even.
Yes.
I say CD player like it's 1997 or whatever. But,
wow.
But he was just like, oh my God, son, this is amazing. And I do want to point out that Tyson's dad is played by another all-star. Hard to tell because the character doesn't much to do with it. But that's Michael Beach, who you may remember as the leader of the Grim Bastards on Sons of Anarchy. And if you're a movie mindset fan, one of the most frightening characters I've ever seen portrayed in a movie, Pluto from One False Move, who plays a truly terrifying psychopath in that movie. But the scene where he's taking his son around, to his plumbing jobs. And it is revealed that he is paid for work with chili.
Yes.
And he's like, boy, you don't even know. This is so-and-so's famous chili. This is better than a paycheck. And it's just like, wait a second. No wonder his bitch-ass son is like getting involved with Dwight Manfredi. He's doing jobs for food. Come on.
Plumbers like make good money. You have to fuck up so bad to like be known as the plumber that can be paid in chili. Like have it maybe okay if your heart's too big and like you fix some old lady stuff and you know she's like, I just have my SSI check, I'll pay you in chili. That could happen once. But if everyone in probably all of Oklahoma is paying you in chili, you have a rep as just a doormat.
Chili in the oddest container for chili too, by the way. It's not in like a pot. It's in like
an aluminum foil
sheet.
tray. Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. I guess chili could be different in Oklahoma, although I don't believe that. I spent a summer there and chili was the same. So
we haven't talked about him much, but I do want to give Bevilacqua his due, played by Frank Grillo. You know, I really loved Grillo on this show, and I was so happy when it turned out he wasn't going to die and is just going to be friends with Dwight now, because like the team up of them was just so great. But once again, it's just like a testament to the show that like every scene that you see Grillo in, he's either like doing like cowboy, like he's either splitting wood, cleaning guns, and doing cowboy shit with a belt buckle that's the size of a hubcap, or he's just like sitting in a room with his underlings being like, what the fuck you talking about?
yeah.
Keep your fucking mouth shut. And then every scene he's in with Dwight, he's like literally looking Dwight dead in the eye and being like, I'm going to fucking kill you and your family. Like, no, like, what do I want from you? I want a bullet between your eyes right now. And then by the end, they're just like, they squash it. It's cool. Everyone's getting paid.
Yeah.
Like,
everybody, he gets exactly what he wanted in the end because he shows Dwight that he has the guts to say no to him. So he shoots Chicky, and then Dwight's like, you earn 50% now. Or
yeah, no, he was going to give him a 25% kickback, but then he's like, yeah, you earned the 50 just by killing a man in front of me.
In my
for seemingly no reason.
Yeah. No, it seemed like everything was going to go well, and then he just like, I'll just shoot him in the head. And it felt like they were running out of time for the show, which is crazy because it's a 35 minutes an episode, which I also love, by the way.
Yeah, no, there is definitely like the pacing and length of the episode gives me the same vibe as like the essays that the kids who like had to read everything aloud in class would write.
Yeah.
So like by the time you get to the third paragraph, you're just running through it like this, talk really fast.
Yeah. The end of this season was so weird because he gives a speech in a white suit, and then he gets picked up by the CIA. Like he gives a speech, Chicky gets shot, he gets picked up by the CIA, and this all happens in the span of like 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, like I returning, like Tulsa King is the perfect show for our times. You know, like there's been too much TV that's hard to watch.
Yes.
There's too much TV that's painful to watch. Like, you know, it's like this is a like Breaking Bad is over. You know, Breaking Bad, everyone loved the show that like every episode felt like a, you know, like I said, the screws tightening just a notch more.
Yes.
And like until it became excruciating. And that previously, that was how America saw crime. But now in the second Donald Trump era, we're ready for an era of crime that's just good feelings and good times.
That's right. That is right. It's beautiful. I love crime.
I know we have to wrap up soon, but I do have to ask, did you guys see that clip from the new Taylor Sheridan show, Landman, that's going around?
Oh, no, I haven't seen it. I mean, I've seen trailers for the show with Billy Bob.
Wait, let me see if I can just play one little clip from the new Taylor Sheridan verse, because this is the dominant TV mood of our moment, and I thought that this was pretty funny.
Are you two having sex?
Daddy.
Well, I had to ask.
Of course.
And that's what I get for asking. Are you being careful?
Yeah, we have a rule and we stick to it.
I want to regret asking you this, but what is this rule?
As long as he never comes in me, he can come anywhere on me.
Oh.
We'll get a Dr. Pepper. You want anything?
Oh.
Taylor
now I gotta
Sheridan's
watch
World,
that.
man.
Yeah, I need to watch that now.
Yeah.
I saw the beginning of it where it seemed that Billy Bob Thornton was outsmarting somebody, outsmarting a terrorist, I believe, or somebody. Because I started playing it to test the sound, and
Whatever caused Billy Bob Thornton to go into gambling debt, I fully support it because his turn as like a late in career TV star has been great. I don't know if you
Did
guys
you watch
watched
Goliath?
Yeah,
Goliath was awesome. The first season of Goliath was
fucking
fantastic.
love Goliath. No, yeah. Shout out to whatever like Michael Clayton illegal underground gambling ring he's indebted to. Thank you guys.
All right, we're wrapping up for there. That does it for Tulsa King season 2 until season 3. It's just like I want it to be now.
I know it sucks that you
I
have
want to
to
get in a
wait.
time machine and to step out to watch episode 1 of season 3 of Tulsa King. I need to know what happens. But yeah, that'll do it for today's episode. I want to thank Bryan Quinby again. Bryan, if people want Guys, your show, if they want more Bryan Quinby in their life, where should they go?
Well, it's Guys Podcast, patreon.com/Guys Podcast. You can get on the Bull tier, which is audio, or the Hot Wife tier, which is video. I have a disgusting show.
Listen to the show to learn more.
Yeah.
No, and like, and it's part of a very important movement. Very important movement about letting single men into swingers clubs. This is
Yeah, well, you know what? They can't be trusted.
Hey, this sounds like a Dwight Manfredi thing. He should open a swingers club only for single men. He'd be like, hey, so it turns out there's this thing called gay bars.
From what I'm hearing, on single guy night, there aren't a lot of women there. Like a lot of the clubs will have single guy night, but it won't have the couples that are there. Like it was just a bunch of single guys leering at my wife. It's like, what the fuck do you expect? Everybody's there to fuck every person in that room. So yeah, we're trying. We're going to see if we can help them out.
All right. Well, that does it for today's episode. Once again, thanks to Bryan, and thank you to you, the listener. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye. Signing off.
Bye-bye.